They left her bleeding in the rain, broken, silenced, erased. But the man who found her wasn't a saint. He was something the powerful feared more than death itself. This is the story of a woman whose voice was stolen, and the kingpin who declared war to give it back. Not out of mercy, out of rage. If you want to see how far vengeance can burn through power, stay until the end. Hit that like button and drop a comment telling me what city you're watching from. I want to see how far this story travels. Now let me take you to New Bordeaux, where blood and neon run together in the streets. The rain came down like broken glass, each drop shattering against the cracked pavement of 6th Avenue. Leora Vance stood beneath the red neon sign that read "The Velvet Grave," her coat pulled tight against the cold that gnawed through the fabric. The club's marquee flickered, her name in stuttering cursive, half the letters dead. She stared at it longer than she should have, wondering if anyone would notice when they finally took it down for good. Inside, the air was thick with smoke and failure. 12 people scattered across 50 tables, most of them nursing drinks they couldn't afford to replace. The pianist, old Marcus with his arthritic hands, gave her a nod from the corner. She nodded back. What else was there to say? They both knew this room had died years ago. They were just haunting it now. Leora took the stage without introduction. No one clapped. She wrapped her fingers around the microphone, felt the cold metal bite her palm, and closed her eyes. When she sang, the world got smaller, safer. The melody crawled out of her chest, low, aching, familiar. A song about loss she'd written when she still believed someone might listen. Her voice filled the empty spaces between the tables, curled into the shadows where men sat alone with their regrets. For 3 minutes and 40 seconds, she wasn't broke, wasn't forgotten. Wasn't the girl whose landlord slipped eviction notices under the door while she slept. She was just the sound, pure, raw, unfiltered. Then the song ended. Silence rushed back in. Marcus played the final chord. Someone coughed. A glass clinked against wood. Leora opened her eyes to the same 12 faces, the same indifference. She stepped off the stage, her heels clicking against the worn floorboards, and headed for the back room where they kept the liquor and the lies about tomorrow being better. Good set. Marcus didn't look up from wiping down the keys. You're a terrible liar. I know. She grabbed her bag from the hook, checked her phone. 3 texts from her sister asking for money she didn't have. One from the electric company with a subject line she didn't need to open. Nothing else. The screen went dark, reflecting her face back at her. Too thin, too tired, too damn stubborn to quit. You walking? Marcus asked. Always do. Take the main streets tonight. Heard some noise about. I'll be fine. She pushed through the back door before he could argue. The alley swallowed her whole, rain hammering down harder now. Puddles reflected the distant glow of the city, New Bordeaux in all its rotting glory. She pulled her hood up and started walking, heels splashing through water that smelled like rust and old mistakes. 3 blocks. That's all it was to the bus stop. 3 blocks she'd walked 100 times, maybe more. But tonight the air felt different, heavier, like the city itself was holding its breath. She heard them before she saw them. Footsteps. Multiple. Moving fast. Leora's heart kicked hard against her ribs. She didn't turn around. Rule number 1, never let them know you're scared. She walked faster, hand diving into her bag for her keys, Wolverine style between her knuckles like her sister taught her. The footsteps got louder, closer. Hey, hey songbird. The voice came from her left. She turned just enough to see him step out from between 2 dumpsters, tall, blonde, wearing a smile that cost more than her rent. Designer jacket, clean hands, the kind of pretty that knew it could get away with anything. Behind him 3 more, all cut from the same cloth, all looking at her like she was something they'd already bought. Not interested. Her voice came out steady. Good. Don't shake. Don't give them that. Didn't ask if you were interested. Blondie moved closer. She could smell his cologne now. Expensive, cloying. You're Leora, right? Saw you on stage. You got a voice on you, real intimate. Walk away. See, that's not how this works, he smiled wider. My boys and I, we had a bet. I said you'd be sweet, grateful even. They said you'd be a bitch. So which is it, Songbird? She ran, not toward the street. That's what they expected. She cut left, deeper into the alley maze. knew these paths from 2 years of walking them drunk, sober, and everything in between. Her heels screamed against the asphalt, but she didn't stop. Behind her, they laughed. Actually laughed. "Oh, I like this one." The alley forked. She went right, lungs burning, bag slapping against her hip. The rain made everything slick, treacherous. Her foot caught a loose piece of concrete and she stumbled. Didn't fall, but it cost her. They were closer now. She could hear their breathing, their boots pounding, their excitement. Dead end. The wall rose up in front of her, 12 feet of brick and graffiti. No door, no window, no exit. She spun around, back pressed against the wall, keys still clenched in her fist. They slowed to a walk now, fanning out in a semicircle. Blondie in the middle, grinning like he'd just won something. "See? This is better, quieter. We can really get to know each other. Touch me and I'll scream." "Sure you will." He stepped closer. "But who's going to hear you? The junkies? The rats? Scream all you want, songbird. This part of town? Nobody gives a fuck." He was right. She knew he was right. But she screamed anyway. The first hit came from the left. One of his boys, fist catching her temple. White light exploded across her vision. She swung with the keys, felt them bite into something soft. Someone cursed. Then hands grabbed her, too many hands, slamming her against the brick. Her bag fell, keys scattered. "Feisty." Blondie's breath hot against her ear. "That's good. I like that." She tried to knee him. Missed. Someone grabbed her hair, yanked her head back hard enough to make her neck scream. Another fist. This time her ribs. Air whooshed out of her lungs. She couldn't pull it back in, couldn't breathe, couldn't think. "You know who I am?" Blondie's face filled her vision, still smiling. "Probably not. Daddy keeps me out of the papers, but that's okay. You're gonna remember me. Gonna remember this night for the rest of your—" She spat in his face. The smile died. "Hold her." What came next wasn't rage. It was clinical, systematic. They took turns. Fists and boots and laughter that echoed off the walls. She stopped fighting after the first few hits, not because she wanted to, but because her body wouldn't respond anymore. Everything was pain and wet pavement and the taste of copper flooding her mouth. At some point she stopped feeling it. Floated somewhere above herself, watching this broken thing that used to be Lyora Vance curl into itself on the ground. Rain mixed with blood, running down the gutter in thin red streams. "Enough!" Blondie's voice, distant now. "Don't want to kill her. Just teach her some manners." Boots scraped against concrete, moving away, leaving. "Hey!" One of them, the one she'd caught with the keys, kicked her one more time, hard. Her vision went white, then gray, then nothing. "Next time, be grateful." Then silence. Just the rain and her breathing. Shallow, wet, wrong. She tried to move. Couldn't. Tried to call for help. Nothing came out but a wheeze. Her phone was somewhere in the puddle next to her head, screen cracked. Useless. Blood in her eyes. Blood in her lungs. Everything inside her screaming, but her voice, the only thing she'd ever had, gone. This is it, she thought. This is how it ends. Not on a stage, not with music, just here, in the trash, in the rain, forgotten. Her eyes started to close. That's when she heard the footsteps. Different this time. Singular. Measured. Coming closer with the kind of calm that didn't belong in a place like this. She tried to focus, to see who it was, but her vision was fractured. Everything doubled and blurred. A shadow fell over her, tall, broad, wearing the rain like a second skin. Jesus Christ. The voice was low, controlled, but underneath it something else, something that made the air shift. Hands touched her, gentle, checking her pulse, her breathing, professional. She tried to pull away, tried to fight, but her body wouldn't listen. "Don't move. You're hurt badly." She blinked up at him, features coming into focus slowly, sharp jaw, dark eyes, silver threading through black hair. Expensive suit that probably cost more than everything she owned. He wasn't looking at her face. He was cataloging damage, taking inventory. "Who did this?" Not a question. A demand. She tried to answer, couldn't. Her throat was raw, swollen. Blood bubbled past her lips instead of words. The man's jaw tightened. He pulled out his phone, made a call. "Dante, I need a team at the south entrance of the Velvet Grave. Now. And bring the van. Medical setup. Pause. No, not one of ours. Civilian, female. Badly beaten. Another pause. His eyes met hers, and for just a second she saw something flicker there. Recognition, maybe. Or memory. Yes, I'm sure. He hung up, shrugged off his jacket, and wrapped it around her shoulders. It was warm, smelled like cedar and gunpowder. Help is coming. Stay with me. Who? The words scraped out of her, barely audible. Raphael. He said it like it should mean something. Maybe it did. She couldn't think straight, couldn't focus. You sing at my club. I've heard you. Every Thursday night for, what, 2 years? She hadn't known the club had an owner beyond the manager who cut her meager checks. Hadn't cared. But this man, Raphael, he was looking at her like she mattered. Like she was more than just another body in an alley. Don't try to talk. Conserve your strength. Headlights cut through the rain. A black van pulled up, doors opening before it fully stopped. Men poured out, efficient, silent, carrying equipment. Raphael stood, stepped back, let them work. They moved around her like a surgical team, checking vitals, stabilizing her neck, lifting her onto a stretcher with a gentleness that made her want to cry. She caught Raphael's wrist as they loaded her into the van, held on with what little strength she had left. Why? Why are you helping me? Why do you care? Why now, when the world already decided I wasn't worth saving? He looked down at their joined hands, then back at her face. Because no one else will. The doors closed. The van moved, and Leora Vance disappeared into the night, leaving nothing behind but blood-stained rain and questions no one would bother to ask. She woke to white. White ceiling, white walls, white sheets that smelled like antiseptic and money. Her body was a foreign country, every inch of it screaming in a language she didn't want to understand. She tried to sit up, made it about 3 inches before the pain drove her back down. Easy. Raphael. Sitting in a chair by the window, backlit by the gray morning light. He'd been there a while, jacket off, sleeves rolled up, 5 o'clock shadow darker than before. Watching her. Where? Her voice cracked, throat like sandpaper. Safe. He stood, moved to the bedside, poured water from a pitcher into a glass, held it to her lips. She drank, each swallow agony. This is a private facility, off the books. No one knows you're here except the people I trust. How long? 16 hours. He set the glass down. You've got 3 broken ribs, a fractured cheekbone, internal bruising, and a concussion. Doctor says you're lucky to be breathing. Lucky. The word tasted like ash. Who were they? Again, not a question. Raphael pulled the chair closer, sat down, leaned forward with his elbows on his knees. His eyes were darker in this light. Colder. Tell me everything. I didn't get names. There were 4. The main one, he was... She stopped, tried to piece together faces from the blur of violence. Blonde, expensive clothes, said his father keeps him out of the papers. Something shifted in Raphael's expression, a tightening around the eyes. Describe him exactly. She did. Every detail she could remember, the smile, the cologne, the way he spoke like the world owed him everything. Raphael listened without interrupting, his face growing progressively more still. When she finished, he sat back, pulled out his phone, scrolled through something, then turned the screen toward her. Him? The photo showed a young man in a tuxedo at some charity gala, arm around a woman in diamonds. Same face, same smile, same eyes that had watched her bleed. Yes, that's him. Theodore Ashford, Jr. Raphael's voice was flat, factual. Son of Senator Marcus Ashford, currently running for mayor. The senator, not the son. Leora's stomach dropped. Senator? Yes. I'm dead. They'll make sure of it. He said his father keeps him out of the papers. If I talk, if I go to the police, you won't. She stared at him. What? You won't go to the police, because they won't help you. Half of them are on Ashford's payroll, the other half are too scared to cross him. Raphael stood, walked to the window, looked out at New Bordeaux sprawled below, a city of rust and broken promises. Theodore Jr. has done this before, 3 times that I know of. Different women, different parts of town, no charges ever filed, no investigations. The girls either disappear or learn to keep quiet. Then what's the point? Leora's voice broke. Why am I even alive? Why did you... Because I'm not the police. Raphael turned back to face her, and for the first time she saw it. The thing underneath the calm. The thing that made men like Senator Ashford's son possible, and then made them afraid. And I don't need permission to fix problems. Fix? She laughed. It hurt. Everything hurt. You mean kill. I mean correct. He moved back to the chair, sat down, met her eyes with a directness that made it impossible to look away. You were attacked because Theodore Ashford believes he owns this city, that he can take what he wants without consequence. He's not wrong. He's just never met someone who cares more about the principle than the politics. Why do you care? You don't know me. I know you sing at my club. I know you show up every Thursday, rain or shine, and perform for empty rooms like they're packed to capacity. I know you've got talent that would make you famous in a different city, a different life. He paused. And I know what it looks like when someone tries to erase another person. I've seen it before. So this is... what? Charity? No. The word came out hard. This is war. Silence filled the space between them. Outside, the city hummed with morning traffic, people going about their lives, unaware that somewhere in a white room, a line was being drawn in blood. I don't want revenge, Leora said quietly. I just want to forget. You think you do, but forgetting means they win, means the next girl Theodore decides to put his hands on ends up where you did, or worse. Raphael leaned forward again, elbows on knees, hands clasped. I'm not asking for your permission, Leora. I'm telling you what's going to happen. Theodore Ashford Jr. will answer for what he did. So will his friends. So will anyone who helped cover it up. And me? You heal, you rest, you stay here where you're protected until this is finished. Protected. She tested the word. You mean imprisoned? Call it what you want. You're not safe out there, not anymore. Theodore saw your face. He'll remember you. And when his father finds out someone knows what he did, someone who might talk, they'll come looking. Raphael's voice dropped lower. I won't let that happen. You don't own me. No, but I own this city's shadows, and right now that's where you need to be. She wanted to argue, to tell him to go to hell, that she'd survived this long without some crime lord playing savior. But the truth was, she was scared, terrified. And Raphael, dangerous as he clearly was, hadn't hurt her, hadn't touched her except to check for injuries, hadn't asked for anything except the information she'd already given. How long? She asked. As long as it takes. That's not an answer. It's the only one I have. He stood, buttoned his cuffs with practiced efficiency. There's food if you're hungry, clothes in the closet. Doctor will be back to check on you in a few hours. If you need anything, press the button by the bed. Someone will come. And if I just leave? Raphael paused at the door, looked back at her. Then you'll die. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but Theodore Ashford doesn't leave loose ends. I do this for a living, Leora. I know how men like him think. Right now he believes you're just another girl he broke, a statistic, but the moment you become a threat... He didn't finish, didn't need to. The door closed behind him with a soft click. Leora lay there in the white room, staring at the ceiling, trying to reconcile the man who'd wrapped his jacket around her in the rain with the one who'd just calmly promised to dismantle a senator's family. Both versions felt real. Both felt dangerous. She closed her eyes, felt the pain radiating through her ribs, her face, her everything. Tried to remember what her voice sounded like before it got swallowed by fists and fear. Somewhere in the building, Raphael was making calls, moving pieces, starting a war she hadn't asked for but couldn't stop. And despite everything, despite the pain, the fear, the absolute insanity of the situation, she believed him, which might have been the most terrifying thing of all. The next 3 days blurred together in a haze of medication and silence. Leora slept in fits, waking to the same white walls, the same filtered sunlight, the same question. What happens now? The doctor came and went, A woman in her 50s with gentle hands and eyes that had seen too much. She never asked questions, just checked vitals, changed bandages, adjusted prescriptions. Raphael appeared once a day, usually in the evening. He'd sit in the chair by the window, sometimes working on a laptop, sometimes just reading. They didn't talk much. Leora wasn't sure what to say to a man who'd made her survival his personal mission. Thank you felt obscene. Why felt pointless? On the fourth day, she managed to walk to the bathroom without help. Small victory. She caught her reflection in the mirror and immediately wished she hadn't. The woman staring back was unrecognizable. Bruises in shades of purple and yellow, swelling that made her face lopsided, split lip held together with surgical glue. She touched her cheekbone gingerly, felt the fracture underneath, and something inside her cracked. Not pain, rage. She gripped the sink, knuckles white, breathing hard through her nose. This is what Theodore Ashford had made of her. This broken, grotesque thing. And somewhere out there, he was probably at another gala, smiling for cameras, untouched. The rage felt good, clean, better than fear. When Raphael came that evening, she was dressed, real clothes from the closet, not the hospital gown. Jeans and a soft sweater that didn't press against her ribs too badly. He paused in the doorway, taking in the change. You're moving better. I'm done lying down. She stayed by the window, arms crossed carefully. Tell me what you've been doing. Research. That's not an answer. Raphael closed the door, set his laptop on the small table, opened it. Theodore Ashford Jr. has a routine. Country club on Mondays and Thursdays. Private poker game on Wednesdays. Friday nights he's usually at the Meridian, upscale club downtown where he and his friends. I don't want his schedule. I want to know what you're planning. He looked at her, really looked, and she saw the calculation happening behind his eyes. How much to tell her, how much she could handle. I'm going to dismantle him, Raphael said finally, piece by piece, starting with the men who helped him that night. You found them? 2 of them. The third is proving difficult, but he'll surface. Raphael pulled up photos on the laptop. 3 young men, all variations of the same entitled smile. Jason Kerr, family owns half the real estate development in the district. Christopher Lane, father's a judge. And Michael Torres, him I'm still tracking. Leora stared at the faces, tried to match them to the blur of violence. What are you going to do to them? Make them confess. To who? The police won't. Not to the police. To me. On record. Every detail of what happened that night. Raphael's voice was steady, clinical. And then I'm going to make sure that confession finds its way to people who'll use it. Journalists, prosecutors who aren't bought, people who'll make noise. That'll start a war with Senator Ashford. Yes. You'll lose. He's got money, power, connections. So do I. Raphael leaned back, closing the laptop. You think I operate in this city without leverage? Without knowing where everybody's buried, every dirty secret, every transaction that should have stayed hidden? Senator Ashford is powerful because people believe he's untouchable. I'm going to show them he bleeds. Leora moved away from the window, closer to where he sat. Why? Why risk everything for someone you don't even know? Raphael was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was different, softer, weighted with something old and unhealed. 7 years ago, I had someone working for me, Sophia. She ran one of my clubs on the east side, good at her job. Kept her head down, didn't ask questions. He paused. A city councilman's nephew decided he wanted her. She said no. He didn't take it well. Leora felt her chest tighten. I found out 3 days after it happened. She hadn't told anyone, was scared, thought reporting it would make it worse. By the time I knew, the nephew had already paid her to disappear. A lot of money. Enough to leave New Bordeaux and never look back. Raphael's jaw worked. I let her go, told myself it was her choice, that she was safer somewhere else. What happened? She killed herself 6 months later, drove her car into a lake upstate. His eyes met Leora's, and she saw the guilt there, raw and permanent. Because I let them make her believe that running was the only option, that justice wasn't possible, that men like that just win. The silence stretched. I'm sorry, Leora said quietly. Don't be. Just understand, this isn't charity. This isn't even about you, not entirely. Raphael stood, straightened his cuffs. This is about drawing a line. showing the city that there are still consequences, that I failed Sophia, but I won't fail you. I'm not your redemption. No, you're your own. I'm just making sure you survive long enough to claim it. He left before she could respond, the door clicking shut with that same soft finality. Leora sank into the chair, mind racing. She'd thought Raphael was protecting her out of some twisted sense of ownership, or maybe guilt. But this was something else, something colder and more purposeful. He was using her pain as a catalyst, yes, but he was also waging a war he'd been preparing for since long before she walked into that alley. And she was trapped in the middle of it. Outside, the sun set over New Bordeaux, painting the sky in shades of rust and fire. Somewhere in that sprawl, Theodore Ashford Jr. was living his life, untouched, unworried. His friends were laughing over drinks, making plans for the weekend, sleeping soundly in beds that cost more than most people made in a year. Leora pressed her hand against the window, felt the cold glass against her palm. Not for long, she thought. Maybe Raphael was right. Maybe forgetting meant they won. Maybe the only way out of this was through the fear, the pain, the absolute terror of what came next. She pulled her hand back, looked at her reflection ghosted in the glass. Still broken, still bruised, but underneath it, something else now. Fury. On the 7th day, Raphael brought a visitor. The man who followed him into the room was older, gray-haired, carrying a leather bag that looked expensive and well-used. He had the air of someone who'd seen everything twice and wasn't impressed either time. "This is Vincent," Raphael said. "My attorney." "Recovering attorney," Vincent corrected, setting the bag on the table. "I gave up pretending the system works about a decade ago. Now I just make sure Raphael's chaos stays technically legal. Mostly." Leora looked between them. "Why is he here?" "Because if we're going to do this right, we need documentation." Raphael gestured for Vincent to continue. Vincent pulled out a tablet, opened a recording app. "I'm going to ask you questions about the night you were attacked. Every detail you can remember. Location, time, physical descriptions, what was said. It'll be rough. Might bring things back you'd rather forget. But we need it on record, time-stamped, sealed." "For what?" "Insurance," Raphael said. "If something happens to you, or to me, this testimony still exists. Can't be buried, can't be bought." Leora sat down slowly, ribs protesting. "You think they'll try to kill me. I think they'll try to make you disappear one way or another. Money, threats, violence, whatever works." Raphael's voice was matter of fact. "This way, your truth survives regardless." She wanted to run, to tell them both to go to hell, that she'd take her chances on the street. But the truth was, there were no chances. Not anymore. Theodore Ashford had made sure of that the moment his fist broke her ribs, and his smile promised she was nothing. "Okay," she said. "Ask." Vincent hit record. For the next 90 minutes, Leora relived the worst night of her life in excruciating detail. Vincent didn't let her gloss over anything. He wanted exact quotes, positions, the order of events, where each blow landed, what they smelled like, the sound Blondie's voice made when he promised she'd remember. She cried twice, stopped, forced herself to continue. Raphael stood by the window the entire time, back to them, hands clasped behind him, listening, not moving. When it was finally over, Vincent stopped recording, packaged the file with encryption she didn't understand, and gave her a nod that might have been respect. "You did good," he said. "Takes guts to put this down." "Didn't feel like I had a choice." "You didn't, but you could have made it harder. Some people do." He packed up his tablet. "This gets stored in 3 separate locations, all protected. If anyone tries to access it without authorization, we'll know." After Vincent left, Leora stayed in the chair, drained. Raphael finally turned from the window. "I know that was difficult. You don't know shit about what that was." The words came out sharper than she intended. She was too tired to soften them. "You're right, I don't." He moved to the chair across from her, sat down. "But now we have leverage, proof, a narrative that can't be erased. Unless I am. That won't happen. You can't promise that." "No, but I can make it expensive enough that they'll think twice." Raphael leaned forward, elbows on knees, his standard position when he wanted her to really listen. "Tomorrow, things start moving faster. I've located Jason Kerr. He's going to tell me everything about that night, and then he's going to regret every second of it. And after him? Christopher Lane, then Michael Torres, and then Theodore himself. And then what? You kill them? Make them disappear? Raphael smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. I'm going to do something worse. I'm going to make them confess publicly, destroy their futures, turn them into cautionary tales. He paused. Death is easy, Leora. Living with consequences, that's the real punishment. She studied his face, trying to find the lie. Found only cold certainty. What if this destroys you too? Then it destroys me. Raphael stood, straightened his jacket. Some wars are worth the cost. He left her alone with that thought, the door closing one more time on a room that felt smaller every day. Leora stood, walked to the mirror, forced herself to look at the damage again. The bruises were fading, yellow now instead of purple. The swelling had gone down enough that she could almost recognize herself. Almost. She touched the split in her lip, felt where it was healing crooked. Raphael was right about one thing. Forgetting meant they won. And she was so goddamn tired of losing. The next morning, she woke to voices outside her door, muffled, urgent. She sat up carefully, listening. Raphael's voice, low and controlled. Another man, younger, speaking quickly. Just confirmed it. Kerr's at the country club. Usual table. Security's light today. How light? 2 guys, both more decorative than functional. Good. We move in 20. Footsteps retreating. Silence. Leora got out of bed, moved to the door, pressed her ear against it. Nothing. She tried the handle. Unlocked. Same as always. Raphael had never actually imprisoned her, just made it very clear that leaving meant dying. She opened the door a crack, peered into the hallway. Empty. Plush carpet, expensive art on the walls, indirect lighting that cost more than most people's cars. This wasn't a hospital. It was a fortress dressed up as luxury. Decision time. She could stay here, safe, protected, useless. Or she could follow Raphael into whatever fresh hell he was about to unleash and see for herself what justice looked like when it didn't wear a badge. Her ribs screamed protest as she grabbed a jacket from the closet. She ignored them. Ignored the voice in her head that sounded like her sister, telling her to be smart, be safe, be invisible. She'd been invisible her whole life. Look where that got her. Leora slipped into the hallway, following the sound of voices toward what she hoped was an exit that wouldn't set off alarms. The building was bigger than she'd realized, hallways branching off into other wings, stairs leading up and down. She took the stairs down, moving as quickly as her body allowed. 2 floors below, she found them, Raphael and 3 men, all dressed in dark clothes, checking weapons with practiced efficiency. They didn't notice her at first. She stayed in the stairwell shadow, watching. Raphael pulled on gloves, checked his watch. Dante, you're on the perimeter. No one gets in or out without my say. Marcus, you're with me. Leo, car running, back entrance. They nodded, moved like parts of a machine that had run this operation 100 times before. Leora stepped out of the shadow. I'm coming with you. All 4 men turned. Raphael's expression went from tactical focus to something darker. Anger, maybe, or fear disguised as anger. No. Not asking permission. She moved closer, chin up despite the fact her hands were shaking. You want me to heal? Fine. But I need to see this, need to watch what happens to them. This isn't therapy, Leora. It's war. I know, you said. She held his gaze. I'm already in it. Might as well see the battlefield. The other men looked to Raphael, waiting for orders. He stared at her for a long moment, jaw working, probably running through a dozen reasons why this was a terrible idea and finding none that she'd accept. You stay in the car, he said finally. You don't move. You don't interfere. You watch, and then you go back to the room. Understood? Understood. He didn't look happy about it, but he nodded to Leo. Get her a vest. Small. 10 minutes later, Leora was in the back of a black SUV, wearing a bulletproof vest that felt like a cage and watching New Bordeaux slide past the tinted windows. The city looked different from in here. Smaller, manageable, like something that could be conquered if you had the right leverage and enough bullets. Raphael sat in the front passenger seat, silent, radiating the kind of controlled tension that came before violence. The other men, Dante and Marcus, sat on either side of her, also silent, also ready. The country club appeared like a mirage of wealth. Manicured lawns, fountain out front, valets in white jackets. Leo pulled around to the service entrance, killed the engine. 5 minutes, Raphael said, checking his watch again. Then we're ghosts. He and Marcus got out. Dante stayed with Leora, hand resting casually on the gun at his hip. Through the tinted window, she watched Raphael and Marcus disappear into the building through a service door that shouldn't have been unlocked but apparently was. Her heart hammered against her ribs, the broken ones, the ones that still screamed with every breath. She pressed her hand against the vest, tried to steady herself. First time? Dante asked, not looking at her. What? Watching Raphael work. Yeah. It's not pretty. Good. Dante smiled, brief and sharp. Yeah. Boss said you had teeth. Inside the country club, something was happening. Leora couldn't see it, couldn't hear it, but she felt it in her bones, the shift from before to during. The moment when talk became action. 3 minutes passed, 4, then movement. Raphael and Marcus emerging from the service door, moving fast but not running. Between them, a man in expensive golf clothes, stumbling, face already bloodied. Jason Kerr. They shoved him into the back of another vehicle, a van that had appeared while Leora wasn't looking. Marcus climbed in after him. The van doors slammed shut. Raphael returned to the SUV, got in, didn't look back at her. Go. Leo drove. Not fast, not slow. Just another vehicle leaving a country club on a Wednesday afternoon. Normal. Invisible. Leora stared at the van ahead of them, knowing Jason Kerr was inside, probably terrified, definitely bleeding, absolutely aware that his life as he knew it was over. She should have felt something. Horror, maybe. Guilt. But all she felt was that clean, cold rage. And for the first time since that alley, she smiled. The warehouse smelled like rust and old blood. Not fresh, nothing recent, but the kind of scent that soaked into concrete over years of bad decisions and worse outcomes. Leora stood just inside the door, Dante's hand on her elbow, watching Raphael cross the empty space toward a chair bolted to the floor in the center of the room. Jason Kerr sat in that chair, zip-tied at the wrists and ankles, head hanging forward. Blood dripped from his nose onto his white golf shirt, each drop spreading into a constellation of red. When he lifted his head, his eyes were wild, darting between Raphael and the exits he couldn't reach. You're making a mistake, Jason said, voice cracking. Do you know who my father is? Do you have any idea what he'll... Raphael backhanded him. Not hard, almost casual, just enough to snap Jason's head sideways and shut him up. Your father owns shopping malls, Raphael said, pulling off his gloves finger by finger. I own the streets those malls sit on. We're not the same. Marcus appeared from somewhere in the shadows, carrying a metal case. He set it on a table near the chair, opened it. Inside, tools. Not all of them were for persuasion. Some were just for show. But Jason didn't know that. His eyes went wide, breath coming in short gasps. Wait, we can talk about this. Whatever you think I did, I don't think anything. Raphael's voice was flat, factual. I know exactly what you did. 8th and Vine. Service alley behind the Velvet Grave. You and 3 other men beat a woman half to death and left her in the rain like garbage. Jason's face went pale. That wasn't... We were just... Tell me their names. What? The other men. Their names. Raphael selected a pair of pliers from the case, examined them with the detachment of a surgeon choosing instruments. You give me that. Maybe this goes easier. I can't. Jesus Christ, I can't. If Theodore finds out I talked... Theodore Ashford Jr. Raphael set the pliers down, leaned against the table. So he was there, leading. Jason realized his mistake immediately. His mouth opened, closed, no words came out. Leora watched from her position near the door, ribs aching, hands clenched so tight her nails bit into her palms. This was the man who'd held her down, who'd laughed while Blondie, Theodore, used her face as a punching bag, who'd kicked her one last time before they left, told her to be grateful. She wanted to feel vindicated, wanted the rage to feel satisfying. Instead, she just felt tired. The other 2, Raphael said, patience wearing thin. Christopher Lane, I already know. But the 4th, the one I can't find. Who is he? Michael, Jason whispered. Michael Torres. But he's gone. Left town the day after. His family has money in Costa Rica. He's probably address. I don't know. I swear to God, I don't. Raphael picked up the pliers again, moved closer. Jason tried to pull back, but the chair didn't give. Okay. He has a condo downtown. The Apex building, 23rd floor, unit 2304. But he's not there, I'm telling you. He ran. We'll see. Raphael stepped back, nodded to Marcus. Get him ready for transport. Transport where? Jason's voice pitched higher. What are you going to do to me? Nothing you don't deserve. Raphael walked away from the chair toward Leora. As he passed, he lowered his voice. You've seen enough. Dante will take you back. No. He stopped. Leora, I said no. She moved past Dante, closer to where Jason sat bleeding and terrified, stood in front of him until he had no choice but to look at her. You remember me? Jason stared, confusion giving way to recognition, then horror. Oh God. Oh Jesus, we weren't supposed to, weren't supposed to, what? Kill me? Just beat me unconscious and hope I kept my mouth shut? Her voice was steady, colder than she knew she could sound. You told me to be grateful. Remember that? Last thing you said before you kicked me in the ribs. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. We were drunk, and Theodore, he gets like that when he's... I don't care. She cut him off. I don't care if you were drunk. Don't care if Theodore made you do it. You had a choice. Every second, you had a choice to stop, to walk away, to be a fucking human being. And you chose this. Jason was crying now, tears mixing with the blood on his face. Please, I'll do anything. I'll testify. I'll tell everyone what happened. You'll do that anyway, Raphael said from behind her. Because if you don't, I'll make sure what happens next makes tonight look like mercy. Marcus hauled Jason to his feet, started dragging him toward a back door. Jason screamed, begging, promising, offering money, connections, anything that might buy him a way out. The door slammed shut. Silence rushed back in. Leora stood in the middle of the warehouse, staring at the empty chair, at the blood on the concrete, at the tools still laid out on the table. Her hands were shaking. She couldn't stop them. Raphael appeared at her side, not touching her, just present. You shouldn't have seen that. Probably not. She turned to face him. But I needed to. Did it help? I don't know yet. They stood there in the quiet, two people on opposite sides of the same violence, trying to figure out if they were healing something or just making it worse. Come on, Raphael said finally. Let's go. The ride back was silent. Leora sat in the same seat, wearing the same vest, watching the same city slide past. But something had shifted. She'd seen Raphael's war up close now, not the theory of it, the reality. The blood and the fear and the cold efficiency with which he dismantled people who thought they were safe. It should have scared her. Instead, it felt like permission. Like, back in the White Room, she stripped off the vest, sat on the edge of the bed, and waited for the adrenaline to fade. It didn't. Her whole body hummed with it, fight or flight stuck in the on position with nowhere to go. A knock on the door. Raphael, still in the same clothes, blood on his cuff he probably hadn't noticed. You okay? Define okay. He came in, closed the door behind him, stayed near the entrance like he was expecting her to throw him out. What you saw tonight was necessary. I know. You don't have to justify it. I'm not justifying it. I'm making sure you understand what's coming next. Raphael moved closer, sat in the chair across from her bed. Jason will confess. I'll make sure of that. But the moment that confession exists, Senator Ashford will know someone's coming for his son. He'll mobilize every resource he has to bury this, bury you. Let him try. Leora, I'm serious. This isn't rage talking. This is strategy. Once we move on Christopher Lane and Michael Torres, once we have all three confessions, we can't unring that bell. The Ashfords will come at us with everything. Legal, illegal, doesn't matter. They'll paint you as unstable, me as a gangster with a vendetta. They'll find every mistake you've ever made and weaponize it. I don't have mistakes. She laughed, bitter. I don't have anything. No record, no debts, no scandals. I'm nobody. That's the whole point, isn't it? They chose me because I didn't matter. You matter now. The words sat between them, heavy and complicated. How long? Leora asked. Until you move on the next one? Tomorrow, maybe the day after. Lane's more cautious than Kerr, travels with security, changes his routine. We're tracking him, but it takes time. And Torres? If he's really in Costa Rica, we'll need to adjust, but I have people looking. He'll surface. Leora nodded, processing. What happens to Jason? After he confesses? He disappears for a while, somewhere he can't recant, can't be pressured. When the time's right, his testimony goes public. Raphael leaned forward, elbows on knees. I'm not a monster, Leora. I don't torture for fun. This is about accountability, making sure what happened to you doesn't get swept under the rug like it never mattered. And if the Ashfords kill me before that happens, they won't. You keep saying that like it's a fact, because I won't let them. His voice dropped lower, harder. You want to know why I really care about this? Why I'm risking my empire, my life, everything I've built? You told me, Sophia, your guilt. That's part of it. But the real reason? Raphael met her eyes, and she saw something raw there, something he usually kept locked away. Because power without consequence is just tyranny, and I'm tired of watching this city bow to tyrants while pretending it's civilization. The Ashfords think they're untouchable because no one's ever made them bleed. I'm going to prove them wrong. Not for you, not for Sophia. For every person who's ever been told their pain doesn't matter because they don't have the right last name. Leora studied him, trying to see past the anger to whatever drove it. You sound like a revolutionary. I'm a criminal with standards, not the same thing. Close enough. He almost smiled, almost. Get some rest. Tomorrow's going to be worse. Worse how? Vincent's coming back. We need to go over your testimony again. Tighten it up. Make sure it's airtight before we go public. Raphael stood, headed for the door, and I need you to start thinking about what comes after. After what? After this is over. After the Ashfords fall. After you're not in danger anymore. He paused, hand on the doorknob. You can't stay in this room forever, Leora. Eventually, you'll need a life. I need to know you're prepared for that. He left before she could answer. Leora lay back on the bed, stared at the ceiling, and tried to imagine what after looked like. Couldn't. Everything beyond this moment felt hypothetical, distant, like a future that belonged to someone else. She closed her eyes, felt the exhaustion pulling her under, and let it take her. The next morning, Vincent arrived with his tablet and his world-weary expression and a question that made Leora's stomach drop. When was the last time you spoke to your family? She sat up straighter. Why? Because Senator Ashford's people are digging into your background. They'll find your sister, Emily, right? Married, 2 kids, lives in Henderson? Leora's blood went cold. Don't you dare bring them into this. I'm not bringing them anywhere, but the Ashfords will. Vincent pulled up something on his tablet, turned it toward her. A photo of Emily's house, her kids playing in the front yard, time-stamped from 2 days ago. They're establishing leverage. If you cooperate, testify against Raphael instead of Theodore, maybe your family stays safe. That's a threat. Of course it's a threat. It's also predictable. Raphael appeared in the doorway, coffee in hand, looking like he'd been up all night. Which is why we moved your sister and her family to a secure location this morning. They're safe. Confused, probably angry, but safe. Leora stood up too fast, ribs screaming. You did what? Protected them, same as you. You can't just... They have lives, jobs, school, and they'll have all of that back when this is over. But right now, they're a target because of their connection to you. Emily can hate me later. Right now, she's alive. Leora wanted to scream, wanted to throw something, wanted to tell Raphael he'd crossed a line, that her family wasn't his to move around like chess pieces. But the photo on Vincent's tablet sat there, undeniable proof that he was right. I want to talk to her. Not yet. Any communication can be traced, used against us. Give it 3 days. Once we have Laney and Torres locked down, you can call. 3 days? Yes. She sat back down, feeling the walls of the white room press closer. This is insane. All of this. We're not soldiers. We're survivors, Raphael interrupted. And survivors do what's necessary. Vincent cleared his throat. If we're done with the family drama, I need to go over some timeline inconsistencies in your original statement. For the next 2 hours, Leora relived the attack again. Different angles this time, focusing on details that could be verified. Streetlight positions, the sound of traffic, the smell of the alley. Vincent was merciless, poking holes in her memory, forcing her to differentiate between what she knew and what she assumed. By the end, she was exhausted, wrung out, ready to sleep for a week. Good, Vincent said, saving the updated file. This version will hold up under scrutiny. The Ashfords' lawyers will try to discredit you, claim it was consensual, or that you're lying for money, or that Raphael's manipulating you. But this testimony? It's solid. Glad my trauma makes for good evidence. Vincent snapped his tablet case shut, looked at her with something that might have been sympathy. I know this is hell, but you're doing the right thing. Most people in your position would have taken the money and run. Most people in my position end up dead. Yeah, they do. He stood, nodded to Raphael. I'll have the affidavits ready by Friday. Make sure our witnesses are still breathing by then. After Vincent left, Raphael sat down in the chair, ran a hand through his hair, the first sign of stress she'd seen him show. You look tired, Leora said. Haven't slept. Why not? Because Christopher Lane just lawyered up, got himself a bodyguard detail and moved into his father's estate. Getting to him now means going through security that's actually competent. So we wait. We don't have time to wait. The longer we take, the more the Ashfords prepare. They're already moving money around, calling in favors. Senator Ashford gave a press conference yesterday about baseless attacks on his family. He's getting ahead of this. Leora frowned. So what do we do? Raphael was quiet for a long moment, staring at nothing. When he spoke, his voice was different, harder, more dangerous. We make Lane come to us. How? By giving him something he wants. Which is? Raphael looked at her, and she saw the calculation in his eyes, the cold math of strategy. You. Her stomach dropped. Absolutely not. Hear me out. No way in hell am I bait. You already are. Raphael leaned forward, hands clasped. The moment Jason Kerr disappeared, the others knew someone was coming. Laney's hiding because he's scared. But if we offer him a chance to silence the witness, he might take it. And then what? He kills me and you swoop in to save the day? That's a terrible plan. He won't kill you. He'll try to pay you off, threaten you, maybe rough you up to scare you silent, but he won't kill you in public. Too risky. Raphael's voice was calm, methodical. We set up a meeting, somewhere controlled. You wear a wire. He incriminates himself. We get our confession. Or he shoots me in the face and dumps my body in the river. That won't happen. You keep saying that. Because it's true. I'll have a dozen people in position. Dante, Marcus, others you haven't met. You'll never be more than 10 feet from backup. Leora stood, paced the length of the room, trying to think through the panic. This is insane. You're asking me to walk into a trap on purpose. I'm asking you to trust me. I barely know you. You know enough. Raphael stood too, closed the distance between them. You know I haven't lied to you once. You know I could have left you in that alley and no one would have questioned it. You know I've put my entire operation at risk because I believe what happened to you was wrong and needs to be answered for. He paused. You know I won't let them hurt you again. She wanted to believe him. God, she wanted to. But trusting a crime lord to keep her safe while using her as bait felt like the kind of decision that ended with a closed casket and a short obituary. When? She asked quietly. Tomorrow night. Public place, restaurant, bar, somewhere with witnesses. You tell Lane you're willing to talk, willing to forget what happened for the right price. He'll jump at it. And if he doesn't? Then we move to plan B. Which is? Raphael smiled, cold and sharp. You don't want to know. That night, Leora lay awake staring at the ceiling, running through every possible outcome. Most of them ended badly. Some ended with her dead. A few, very few, ended with her alive and the Ashfords destroyed. She thought about her sister, her niece and nephew, probably scared out of their minds in whatever safe house Raphael had stashed them in. Thought about Sophia, the woman Raphael had failed, who'd driven her car into a lake because she couldn't live with what had been done to her. Thought about Theodore Ashford's smile, the way it stayed perfect even while his fists broke her bones. Somewhere around 3 in the morning, she made her decision, not because she trusted Raphael, Not because she believed his plan would work, but because the alternative, hiding in this white room while the Ashfords walked free, felt worse than dying. She got out of bed, walked to the door, opened it. Raphael was in the hallway, leaning against the wall opposite her room like he'd been waiting. "Can't sleep either?" she asked. "Never could before an operation." "This what you do, every night before someone might die?" "Sometimes." He pushed off the wall. "You changing your mind?" "No, I'm in, but I have conditions." "Name them." "First, my family stays protected, not just during this after. If the Ashfords try to retaliate, you make sure Emily and the kids are untouchable." "Done." "Second, when this is over, I want out, completely. No ties to you, no favors owed, no you're part of my world now bullshit. We're even." Raphael's expression flickered, something that might have been disappointment. "Agreed." "Third." She stepped closer, looked him in the eye. "You promise me, actually promise, that if this goes sideways, if Lane pulls a gun or brings backup you didn't expect, you don't hesitate. You don't try to save me if it means losing everything else. You finish this even if I don't make it out." "Leora, promise me." He stared at her for a long moment, jaw working. "I can't." "Then I'm not doing it." "You don't understand what you're asking." "I understand perfectly. You've built something here, power, control, an empire. You can't throw that away for one person. Not even for guilt. Not even for Sophia." She held his gaze. "If I die tomorrow, you make sure it counts. You make sure the Ashfords burn. That's the promise I need." Raphael's hands clenched into fists at his sides. When he spoke, his voice was rough, barely controlled. "You're wrong about one thing." "What?" "I can throw it all away. I have before. I would again." He stepped closer, close enough that she could see the exhaustion in his eyes, the weight of every decision he'd ever made. "But I won't have to, because you're not dying tomorrow, not on my watch." "You can't know that." "Watch me." They stood there in the hallway, two people bound together by violence and vengeance and something neither of them wanted to name. The air between them felt charged, dangerous in a way that had nothing to do with the Ashfords. Leora broke first, stepping back. "Tomorrow, then." "Tomorrow." She returned to her room, closed the door, and tried to convince herself she'd made the right choice. The next day moved too fast and too slow at the same time. Vincent arrived with the wire, a tiny microphone disguised as a necklace, nearly invisible. He showed her how to activate it, how to position herself so the audio would be clear. "Don't touch it once it's on," he warned. "Don't adjust it. Don't fidget with it. Pretend it doesn't exist." "Easy for you to say." Marcus brought clothes, a dress, heels, makeup. "You need to look like you're trying," he explained, "like you're playing the part of scared victim willing to deal. Too casual, and Lane won't buy it." She changed in the bathroom, stared at her reflection. The bruises had faded enough that makeup could mostly cover them. The woman looking back at her was recognizable again, still thin, still tired, but no longer quite so broken. Raphael knocked, entered without waiting for permission, stopped when he saw her. "You look—" "Don't," she cut him off. "Don't make this weird. I was going to say ready." "Oh." She turned back to the mirror, fixed her lipstick with hands that wouldn't stop shaking. "When do we leave?" 30 minutes. Dante's bringing the car around." "And Lane knows I'll be there?" Vincent reached out through a mutual contact, told him you wanted to talk, that you were willing to be reasonable if the price was right. Lane jumped at it. "He'll be at Orion's, upscale place downtown, lots of exits, thinks he's in control." "Is he?" Raphael smiled. "Not even close." 20 minutes later, Leora was in the back of the SUV again, wearing the wire, the dress, and a confidence she absolutely did not feel. Raphael sat next to her this time, close enough that she could feel the heat coming off him. "You remember the script?" he asked. "Yeah, I'm scared. I need money to leave town. I'll sign whatever NDA they want. Forget this ever happened. Just want it to be over." "Good. Lane will push for details. What you remember, who you've told, whether you've gone to the police. Don't volunteer anything. Make him work for it. And when he offers money, take it. Let him think he's won. That's when he'll get comfortable, start talking freely. That's when we get him." The city blurred past outside. Leora pressed her hand against the window, felt the cold glass, tried to ground herself in something real. Hey, Raphael's voice, quieter now. You don't have to do this. We can turn around right now, find another way. There is no other way. There's always another way. She looked at him, this man who'd pulled her out of the rain and into a war she never asked for. Do you regret it, saving me? No. Why not? I've made your life infinitely more complicated. Raphael was quiet for a moment, choosing his words carefully. Because you deserve to be saved, and because sometimes complicated is the only way things get better. The SUV pulled up to Orion's, glass and steel and valet parking, the kind of place where a single appetizer cost more than Leora used to make in a week. Raphael checked his watch. Lane's already inside, table in the back, facing the entrance so he can see you coming. Dante and Marcus are positioned at the bar and near the kitchen exit. I'll be in the van monitoring the wire. He handed her a phone. Emergency button is already up. You press it, we come in loud. And if I can't reach the phone? Say the word lighthouse. Doesn't matter the context. You work it into a sentence. We move. Leora nodded, throat tight. This was it. The point where she either proved the Ashfords could be touched or proved Raphael wrong and died trying. She opened the door, stepped out onto the sidewalk, smoothed her dress. The night air was cold, sharp, clearing her head. Leora. She turned back. Raphael was leaning out of the SUV, expression harder to read than usual. You're braver than you think you are. She almost laughed. Almost. I'm terrified. I know. But you're doing it anyway. That's the definition. He pulled the door shut. The SUV drove away, leaving her alone on the sidewalk with nothing but a wire under her dress and a prayer that this wouldn't be the last decision she ever made. Leora walked into Orion's like she belonged there, heels clicking on marble, head high, despite the fear eating through her chest. The hostess smiled, asked if she had a reservation. Meeting someone. Christopher Lane? Recognition flickered in the hostess's eyes, the kind that came with money and power. Of course, right this way. They wound through tables full of people who'd never had to choose between pride and survival, past a bar where men in $1,000 suits traded stocks and stories, toward a corner booth where Christopher Lane sat nursing a scotch and checking his phone. He looked up as she approached. Younger than she expected, mid-20s, clean-cut, the kind of handsome that came from good genes and better dermatologists. His eyes swept over her, calculating, assessing threat level. Leora. He stood, gestured to the seat across from him. Polite, like they were old friends catching up. Thank you for coming. She slid into the booth, folded her hands on the table so he wouldn't see them shake. Didn't think I had much choice. There's always a choice. Lane signaled the waiter, ordered her a drink without asking what she wanted. Scotch, neat, power move. The question is whether you're smart enough to make the right one. That's why I'm here. Good. He leaned back, studying her with the detachment of someone used to buying solutions. I'm going to be direct. That night, the incident was unfortunate. Emotions ran high, things got out of hand. No one intended for you to get hurt. Leora bit her tongue so hard she tasted blood. No one intended, like she'd walked into his fists by accident. I'm listening, she said. What happened is complicated. There are misunderstandings about who was involved, what actually occurred. The truth is, you were in the wrong place at the wrong time. Casualties happen. Casualties. Poor choice of words. Lane smiled, thin and sharp. My point is, dwelling on the past helps no one. You want to move forward. So do we. The question is how we make that happen in a way that benefits everyone. The waiter returned with her scotch. She didn't touch it. You're talking about money, Leora said. I'm talking about opportunities. A fresh start somewhere else. New name if you want it. Enough capital to build whatever life you choose. All we need in return is your cooperation. Cooperation meaning silence. Cooperation meaning perspective. Lane leaned forward, elbows on the table. Look, I get it. You're angry. You have every right to be. But going public with accusations, especially accusations against Theodore, that's not going to end well for anyone. His father is running for mayor. The media will twist this into something it wasn't. Your name will be dragged through every tabloid, every blog. They'll dig up every mistake you've ever made, every bad decision, and use it to destroy your credibility. And if I stay quiet, then you disappear, peacefully, with enough money to never have to sing in empty rooms again. He pulled out his phone, showed her a number, 7 figures. This is what we're prepared to offer. Cash, untraceable. You sign an NDA, agree to never speak about that night, and we all move on with our lives. Leora stared at the number, at this man who thought her pain had a price tag, and felt the rage bubble up again. But she swallowed it, played the part. How do I know you won't just kill me once I sign? Lane actually laughed. Why would we? Dead, you're a martyr. Alive and paid off, you're just another opportunist who took the money and ran. Much cleaner. What about the others? What others? The men who were there, Jason, Michael, Theodore? Do they know about this offer? Lane's expression flickered, just for a second, but she caught it. Uncertainty. This conversation is between you and me. What the others know or don't know isn't relevant. So they don't know you're here. I'm handling this my way. Theodore can be impulsive. Better if he's not involved in the negotiations. There it was. The crack. Lane was operating independently, probably scared out of his mind that Theodore's recklessness would drag them all down. Raphael had been right. Pressure made people sloppy. I need guarantees, Leora said. Real ones. Not just your word. What kind of guarantees? That I'll actually make it out of the city. That your friends won't decide I'm a loose end 6 months from now. That this money is real and not some setup to make me look like I'm lying for cash. Lane drummed his fingers on the table, thinking. Fair enough. We'll use an escrow service. Third party, completely neutral. The money transfers once you sign the NDA and agree to leave New Bordeaux within 72 hours. You disappear, we never speak again, everyone wins. And if I refuse? His expression hardened. Then things get complicated. And trust me, you don't want complicated. Theodore's father has resources you can't imagine. He will bury you. Not might, will. Evidence will disappear. Witnesses will recant. You'll be painted as mentally unstable, a junkie, an opportunist. By the time they're done, no one will believe a word you say. That a threat? That's reality. Lane finished his scotch, set the glass down with a soft click. I'm offering you an out, Leora. A clean one, take it. She pretended to consider, let the silence stretch. The wire under her dress felt like it was burning, recording every word, every threat, every admission. She just needed a little more. What about Jason? She asked. He was there. He knows what happened. How do you keep him quiet? Lane's jaw tightened. Jason's been handled. Handled how? That's not your concern. It is if I'm signing away my right to talk. I need to know all of you are on the same page. We are. Then why can't I talk to him? Why can't I hear from Jason that he's on board with this? Because Jason made a mistake. He talked to the wrong people, got himself into a situation. He's being dealt with. There. Another crack. Lane didn't know where Jason was, didn't know Raphael had him, which meant the Ashfords were scrambling, trying to contain a situation that was already out of control. Leora leaned back, crossed her arms. I want to think about it. There's nothing to think about. This is the offer. Take it or don't. Then I guess I don't. She started to stand. Lane's hand shot across the table, grabbed her wrist, not hard, but firm enough to stop her. Sit down. Let go of me. Not until we finish this conversation. His grip tightened. You walk out of here without signing, you're making a choice, a stupid one. And I can't protect you from the consequences. I don't need your protection. Yes, you do. You just don't know it yet. Lane pulled her closer, voice dropping to a hiss. Listen to me very carefully. Theodore is not stable. When he finds out you're refusing to cooperate, that you're potentially talking to people, what people? Don't play dumb. We know someone grabbed Jason. We know you've been missing for over a week. Connect the dots. He leaned in, breath smelling like expensive scotch and desperation. Whoever you're working with, whatever they promised you, it's a lie. They're using you to get to us. And when they're done, they'll throw you away like garbage, just like we did. Leora jerked her hand free, stood up properly this time. Her heart was hammering, the wire capturing everything, and she knew, absolutely knew, she'd gotten what Raphael needed. Thanks for the drink, she said. And the offer, but I think I'll take my chances. She turned to leave, made it 3 steps before Lane's voice stopped her cold. You're a dead woman walking, you know that? Theodore's already put out feelers. Half the lowlifes in this city are looking for you. There's a bounty, 50,000 to whoever brings you in alive. More if they make sure you can't talk. He stood, straightened his jacket. So go ahead. Walk out of here. See how long you last. Leora turned back, looked him in the eye. Longer than you think. Then she walked. Past the tables, past the bar, past Dante, who gave her the slightest nod, out into the night air that felt like freedom and terror mixed together. The SUV was waiting. She climbed in, hands still shaking, wires still recording. Raphael was already pulling off the monitoring equipment, face tight with something that might have been pride or might have been fury. You got it, he said. All of it. The threat, the admission about Jason, the bounty. This is enough. He knows someone has Jason. He's scared. Good. Fear makes people sloppy. Raphael handed her a bottle of water. Drink. You're shaking. She drank, felt the cold water settle her stomach. There's a bounty on me. 50,000. I heard. That doesn't worry you? Confirms what I already knew. The Ashfords are panicking. They're throwing money around, making noise. That's not strength. That's desperation. Desperation gets people killed. So does underestimating your opponent. Raphael's phone buzzed. He checked it, frowned. Marcus just confirmed it. Michael Torres is back in the city. Landed at the private terminal 2 hours ago. Leora's stomach dropped. Why would he come back? Because the Ashfords called him home. They're circling the wagons, bringing in everyone who was there that night, which means they're planning something. Like what? Raphael met her eyes, and she saw the calculation there. The pieces moving on a board only he could see. Like making sure there are no witnesses left to contradict their version of events. You mean killing me? Killing you, killing me, killing anyone who might testify. The Ashfords are done playing defense. They're going on offense. The SUV pulled into an underground garage, different from where they'd been before. Darker, more industrial. Reinforced doors, security cameras, everywhere. Raphael helped her out, kept his hand on her elbow as they moved through corridors that smelled like concrete and gun oil. Where are we? Secondary location. The penthouse was compromised. Someone's been watching it. We're moving operations here until this is finished. They emerged into a space that looked like a command center. Computers, monitors showing feeds from around the city, maps spread across tables. Dante and Marcus were already there, along with half a dozen others Leora didn't recognize. All armed, all focused. Vincent sat in the corner, headphones on, listening to the recording from her wire. He looked up as they entered, gave Raphael a thumbs up. It's golden. Every word. The threats. The admission. The bounty. We can use this. How fast can you get it to the right people? 24 hours. Less if we're not being careful. Be careful. But be fast. Raphael turned to the others. Status update. One of the men, older, gray-haired, military-bearing, spoke up. Torres is staying at the Apex, same condo Jason mentioned. Security's light. One guy in the lobby, cameras at the exits. We can take him tonight if you want. Not yet. If we grab Torres now, the Ashfords will know we're coming. We need them off balance. Raphael moved to one of the maps, pointed to a location. Senator Ashford is hosting a fundraiser Friday night. Private event, invitation only. Theodore will be there. So will half the city's power structure. You want to hit them there? Marcus asked. That's suicide. No, that's theater. Raphael's smile was cold, precise. We're going to hand-deliver the evidence. All 3 confessions, Leora's testimony, everything, right in the middle of his event, in front of everyone who matters. The Ashfords will have to answer publicly, immediately. No time to spin it, no time to bury it. They'll have us killed before we make it through the door, Dante said. Not if we make it impossible to refuse. Not if we bring the media, the DA, everyone who can't be bought. Raphael looked at Leora. This is the point of no return. Once we do this, there's no walking it back. The Ashfords will come at us with everything. It'll be war. Leora thought about Theodore's smile, about Lane's threats, about the bounty on her head and the fear she'd been carrying since that night in the alley. Thought about her sister and her niece and nephew hiding in some safe house, about Sophia driving her car into a lake, about every woman who'd ever been told her pain didn't matter. "Then let's give them war," she said. Raphael held her gaze for a long moment, then nodded. "Friday night. We end this." The room erupted into motion, people making calls, pulling up blueprints, coordinating with contacts across the city. Leora stood in the center of it all, watching Raphael's empire mobilize for a fight that would either destroy the Ashfords or destroy them all. She should have been terrified. Instead, she felt something else entirely. Alive. For the first time since that alley, since those fists, since the rain and the blood and the belief that she didn't matter, she felt alive. And she wasn't going to waste it. Friday arrived like a countdown to execution. Leora woke in the command center, couldn't call it safe house anymore, not when it hummed with weapons checks and tactical briefings at 4 a.m. She'd slept maybe 3 hours, curled on a cot in a corner room while Raphael's people moved through the corridors like shadows preparing for war. She found Raphael in the main space, standing over blueprints of the Grand Meridian Hotel where Senator Ashford's fundraiser would unfold in 14 hours. He hadn't changed clothes from yesterday, dark circles carved hollows under his eyes. "You look like hell," she said, feeling worse. He didn't look up from the blueprints. "Vincent just confirmed, we've got invitations. 4 of them. Legitimate, no forgeries." One of Ashford's major donors had a sudden change of heart about supporting a man whose son beats women for sport. How'd Vincent manage that? Money, compromising photos, the usual. Raphael finally met her eyes. The donor's daughter was assaulted 2 years ago. Different circumstances, same outcome, swept under the rug, no charges filed. He wants to see the Ashfords burn almost as much as we do. Leora moved closer, studied the blueprints. Red X's marked security positions. Blue circles indicated exits. Green dots showed where Raphael's people would be stationed. "This is insane," she said quietly. "We're walking into a room full of the most powerful people in New Bordeaux and accusing a senator's son of assault. They'll destroy us before we make it to the podium." "That's why we're not going to the podium." Raphael pointed to a service corridor on the blueprint. "The event has live media coverage, local news, some national outlets. They'll be in the press gallery here. We intercept them before the speeches start, hand over everything. Once it's on camera, the Ashfords can't bury it." "You hope." "I know." He straightened, rolled his shoulders like a fighter loosening up before a bout. Senator Ashford's entire campaign is built on family values, law and order, cleaning up New Bordeaux. The moment the media has proof his son is a predator, that foundation cracks. He'll have to respond. Can't ignore it, can't threaten it away. Not with cameras rolling. Dante appeared in the doorway, phone in hand. "We got a problem." Raphael's expression went flat. "Talk." "Michael Torres. He left the Apex an hour ago. We tried to follow, but lost him in the financial district." "Lost him how?" "Professionally, like he knew we were tailing him and had a counter-surveillance team ready." Dante's jaw tightened. "Boss, this smells wrong. Torres has been hiding in Costa Rica for weeks, comes back yesterday, now he's running counter-surveillance. Someone's coaching him." Raphael was silent for 3 seconds. When he spoke, his voice carried the kind of cold that preceded violence. "The Ashfords know we're coming tonight. They're positioning pieces." "We abort?" Marcus asked from across the room. "No, we adjust." Raphael turned to Vincent, who'd materialized with his tablet and his perpetual look of controlled concern. "Can we move the timeline up? Hit them earlier before they're ready?" Vincent shook his head. "Media's not there until 7. The press gallery doesn't open until then. We go earlier, we're just civilians crashing a private party. No cameras, no leverage." "Then we deal with whatever they're planning." Raphael's fingers drummed against the table, the only tell that he was worried. "Double the security detail. I want eyes on every entrance, every corridor. If Torres or anyone connected to the Ashfords shows up, I want to know immediately." The room shifted into motion. People grabbing gear, making calls, running final checks on equipment that could mean the difference between exposure and execution. Leora stayed by the blueprints, tracing the path they'd take through the hotel. In through the service entrance, up the back stairs. Intercept the press gallery. Hand over the evidence. Simple. Too simple. She found Raphael 20 minutes later in the armory, a room she'd avoided until now because seeing that many weapons made the whole thing feel too real. He was checking a handgun with the practiced efficiency of someone who'd done it 10,000 times. You carrying tonight? She asked. Always. He slid the gun into a shoulder holster, covered it with his jacket. You should too. I don't know how to shoot. Then you'll carry one anyway. Safety on, tucked in your purse. If things go sideways, you hand it to Dante or Marcus. Don't try to be a hero. Wasn't planning on it. She watched him check a second gun, this one smaller. Raphael, what if this doesn't work? What if the media doesn't care? Or the Ashfords have already paid them off, or... Then we have a backup plan. Which is? He looked at her and she saw something in his eyes she hadn't seen before. Not fear exactly. Something colder. More final. You don't want to know. The hours crawled. Leora showered, changed into the dress Vincent had provided. Elegant, expensive, the kind of thing that would help her blend into a fundraiser crowd. She applied makeup carefully, covering the last traces of bruising. In the mirror, she almost looked like someone who belonged in that world. Almost. By 6 o'clock, the team was assembled. Raphael in a tailored suit that probably cost more than her entire wardrobe. Dante and Marcus in tactical gear hidden under sport coats. Vincent with his tablet and 3 backup drives containing every piece of evidence they'd collected. 2 other men she'd been introduced to, but whose names she'd already forgotten. Raphael gathered them in the main room. No speech, no pep talk, just cold facts. We go in pairs. Vincent and I take point. Leora, you're with Dante. Marcus and Leo cover our exit. Once we hand the evidence to the press, we have maybe 90 seconds before Ashford security realizes what's happening. That's our window to get out. And if the window closes, Dante asked, then we fight our way through. But it won't come to that. Raphael's voice carried absolute certainty. The Ashfords are powerful, but they're not stupid. They won't start a shootout in front of cameras. Unless they're desperate, Marcus said quietly. Then we find out just how desperate. The convoy left at 6:30. 3 vehicles, staggered departure, different routes to the same destination. Leora rode with Raphael and Dante, sitting in the back seat and watching the city blur past like a dream she couldn't wake up from. You nervous? Dante asked. Terrified. Good. Means you're paying attention. He checked his phone, frowned. Still no sign of Torres. That bothers me. Bothers me too, Raphael said from the front seat. But we can't stop now. We're committed. The Grand Meridian rose up ahead, 20 stories of glass and gilt. The kind of place where decisions that shaped the city got made over scotch and handshakes. Valets worked the circular drive. Women in evening gowns and men in tuxedos flowed toward the entrance like a river of wealth and influence. They parked in the underground garage, took the service elevator to the 3rd floor, moved through corridors lined with catering staff and event coordinators too busy to question people who looked like they belonged. The press gallery was exactly where the blueprint said it would be. A roped-off section with a dozen media outlets setting up cameras and checking lighting. Raphael approached the coordinator, a woman in her 40s with a headset and a clipboard. We need 5 minutes with your people, he said. All of them. The coordinator looked him up and down. And you are? Someone with a story that's going to make their careers. He nodded to Vincent, who pulled out his tablet. 5 minutes. That's all we need. She hesitated, clearly weighing whether to call security or listen. Raphael must have looked credible enough or dangerous enough because she sighed and turned to the gathered media. Everyone, 5-minute hold. We've got something that might interest you. The reporters gathered, skeptical but curious. Always hungry for the next story, the next scandal, the next thing that would drive ratings. Raphael didn't waste time with preamble. Senator Marcus Ashford's son, Theodore Ashford Jr., sexually assaulted and beat a woman 3 weeks ago. Left her for dead in an alley. We have testimony from the victim, confessions from 2 of the men who participated, and evidence that the senator's been covering it up. The room went still, then erupted. Who's the victim? Can we verify the testimony? What kind of evidence are we talking about? Vincent stepped forward, started distributing flash drives. Everything's on here. Audio recordings, time-stamped testimony, medical records, witness statements. We're handing this to all of you simultaneously so no single outlet can be pressured to bury it. One reporter, young, ambitious-looking, pointed at Leora. Is that her? Is she the victim? All eyes turned. Leora's throat closed up. words dying before they could form. Raphael stepped between her and the cameras. Her name doesn't matter yet. What matters is the evidence. Review it, verify it, then decide if it's worth running. We'll need statements. We'll need her on camera. She'll make herself available. After you've confirmed the evidence is legitimate. Raphael's voice hardened. But understand, the moment this story breaks, there will be pressure, money, threats, legal action. The Ashfords will try to kill this any way they can. So if you're not prepared to see it through, delete those files now and walk away. Nobody moved. Good. Raphael checked his watch, 7:15. The senator's speech starts in 10 minutes. I'd suggest you have questions ready. They turned to leave, made it maybe 5 steps before the coordinator called out, "Wait, who are you? Why are you doing this?" Raphael looked back, and for just a moment Leora saw past the crime lord, past the calculated strategy, to something rawer underneath. Because nobody else would. They moved back into the corridor. Dante's phone buzzed. He checked it, and his expression went from focused to alarmed in the space of a heartbeat. "Boss, we got movement. Ashford's security just locked down all the exits. Nobody in or out." Raphael stopped walking. When? 30 seconds ago, right after we left the press gallery. They knew. They fucking knew we'd be here. Raphael's hand moved to the gun under his jacket. Where's the nearest exit that's not locked? Kitchen service entrance west side, but it's exposed. They'll see us coming. Then we move fast. They broke into a run. Not sprinting, that would draw attention, but a controlled jog that got them through the corridors and down a stairwell before anyone could ask questions. The kitchen was chaos. Chefs screaming orders, waiters grabbing trays, steam and heat and noise that covered their movement. The service entrance was 10 feet away. Clear, unguarded, too easy. Raphael must have felt it too because he grabbed Leora's arm, pulled her behind a refrigeration unit just as the door burst open. Theodore Ashford Jr. walked in, flanked by 4 men in suits that didn't quite hide the guns underneath. His eyes swept the kitchen with predatory focus, landing on the catering staff, dismissing them, searching for something else. Searching for her. "Clear the room," Theodore said. Not loud. Didn't need to be. The kitchen staff took one look at him and his men and scattered like roaches when the lights came on. In 20 seconds, the kitchen was empty except for Theodore, his crew, and the people hiding behind industrial refrigerators trying not to breathe too loud. "I know you're here, Raphael." Theodore's voice echoed off the stainless steel. "My father had the whole building wired with cameras. Saw you come in, saw you contaminate the press with your bullshit story. Very bold, very stupid." Silence. Raphael's hand was on his gun, but he didn't draw. Not yet. "Here's what's going to happen," Theodore continued, walking deeper into the kitchen. "You're going to come out. You're going to hand over every copy of that so-called evidence. And then you're going to convince those reporters it was all a misunderstanding, a fabrication, maybe a vendetta against my family." He stopped next to a prep station, ran his finger along the stainless steel counter. "Or," he said quietly, "I'm going to start killing people until you do, starting with the songbird." Leora's blood turned to ice. Raphael's grip on her arm tightened, a warning to stay still, stay quiet. "Don't test me on this, Raphael. I've got 6 men in this building and another dozen outside. You've got what, 4, 5? The math doesn't work in your favor." Movement from the far side of the kitchen. Marcus, emerging from behind a different refrigerator with his hands raised. "Just me, kid. Let's talk this through." Theodore smiled. "Where's Raphael?" "Gone. Out the back while you were monologuing. Took the girl with him." "Bullshit." Theodore's hand moved to his own weapon. "He wouldn't leave his people behind." "You don't know him like I do." Marcus took a step closer. "Raphael's a lot of things, but sentimental isn't one of them. You threatened his operation, he cut his losses. That's how he survived this long." For a second, just a second, Theodore looked uncertain. Then one of his men leaned in, whispered something. Theodore's expression went from uncertain to furious in the space of a breath. "Wrong answer." The gunshot was deafening in the enclosed space. Marcus went down, clutching his thigh, blood spreading across the white tile. "Next one's his head," Theodore said, gun still raised. "Raphael, last chance." Raphael stood up from behind the refrigerator, hands visible, empty. "All right, I'm here." "No!" Leora hissed, grabbing his jacket. Don't! He pulled free, stepped into the open. Theodore's gun tracked him immediately. There we go, that wasn't so hard. Theodore gestured to one of his men. Search him. They found Raphael's gun, his phone, a knife from his ankle. Stripped him of anything that could be a weapon. Then Theodore's eyes shifted past Raphael to where Leora was still crouched behind the refrigerator. Come out, songbird. Let's see what all the fuss is about. She didn't move. Couldn't. Every instinct screaming to stay hidden, stay small, survive. Now! Theodore's gun swung toward Marcus, who was still bleeding on the floor. Or I finish what I started with him. Raphael's voice was quiet, controlled. Leora, it's okay. Come out. She stood on legs that felt like water, stepped into the open. Theodore's eyes raked over her, and she saw recognition flicker there. Recognition and something uglier. Well, you clean up nice. Almost didn't recognize you without all the blood. He moved closer, and she forced herself not to flinch. Did you really think you could come into my father's event and destroy him? Destroy me? You're nobody. A failed singer in a failed club that I own. You don't own the Velvet Grave, Raphael said. My father does. Through shell companies, holding corporations. He owns half this city, Raphael, including most of your operations. Theodore smiled. Did you really think you were independent, that you built your little empire without permission? You exist because the Ashfords allow it, and now that permission is revoked. Leora saw Raphael's expression crack, just slightly, but it was there. Shock, disbelief. You're lying. Am I? Theodore pulled out his phone, showed them something. Financial records, shell companies, money trails that connected Raphael's businesses to Ashford Holdings through layers of corporate obfuscation. My father's been your silent partner for 6 years. Took a percentage of everything you made. Let you think you were dangerous, independent, untouchable, but you were just another asset, another piece on his board. The words hung in the air like poison. That's impossible, Raphael said, but his voice carried less certainty now. I would have known. Would you? You're good at violence, Raphael, at strategy, but accounting, legal structures, that's not your strength. My father's people handled all that, set up your corporations, your accounts. You just signed where they told you to sign and believed you were in control. Leora watched Raphael's face, saw something she'd never seen there before. Doubt. The foundation of everything he'd built, his independence, his power, his ability to wage war against the Ashfords, crumbling in real time. Theodore laughed. This is beautiful. You really didn't know. All this time, all this planning, and you were fighting your own benefactor, the man who made you possible. If that's true, Raphael said slowly, then why haven't you shut me down before now? Because you were useful. Kept the other criminal elements in check, maintained order in the parts of the city too messy for official oversight. But now you've become a liability, threatening my family, feeding lies to the press. That can't be tolerated. One of Theodore's men handed him something, a tablet. He swiped through it, then turned the screen toward them. Here's the really fun part. 20 minutes ago, while you were playing journalist upstairs, my father's people emptied every account connected to your operations, froze your assets, seized your properties. As of right now, Raphael Moretti, you own nothing. You are nothing. The words landed like bullets. Raphael's jaw worked, hands clenching into fists at his sides. You can take the money, the properties, but you can't take what I gave those reporters. That evidence is out there now. Can't be bought back. Can't it? Theodore smiled. Every one of those reporters works for outlets that depend on advertising revenue. Revenue from companies my father either owns or has leverage over. By tomorrow morning, that story will be dead, killed before it ever airs, and your so-called evidence will be dismissed as fabricated revenge porn from a disgraced criminal. The recordings? Deepfakes, AI-generated. We'll have experts testify to it. And who are they going to believe? A senator with 30 years of public service or a crime lord with a vendetta? Theodore moved closer to Raphael, gun still pointed at his chest. You lost, Raphael. The moment you decided to fight the Ashfords, you lost. You just didn't know it yet. Silence filled the kitchen. Leora could hear her own heartbeat, loud and erratic in her ears. This couldn't be happening, couldn't be real. Everything they'd done, everything they'd risked, There's still the testimony, she heard herself say. My testimony. That's not fabricated. That's real. Theodore turned to her and his smile made her stomach turn. Your testimony is the word of a desperate woman trying to extort money from a prominent family. A woman with a history of mental instability. I don't have a history of... You will by the time our lawyers are done. Medical records showing depression, anxiety, previous accusations that went nowhere. All fake. But who's going to prove it? You're broke, powerless, and about to be discredited so thoroughly that your own family won't believe you. He wasn't bluffing. Leora saw it in his eyes, the absolute certainty that he'd won, that the systems protecting him were so vast and so deeply entrenched that nothing she or Raphael could do would ever touch him. So here's the deal, Theodore said, addressing Raphael now. You disappear, leave New Bordeaux tonight, never come back. Maybe I let you live. Maybe I don't. Depends on my mood. And Leora? The songbird? Theodore's smile widened. She stays. Has a little accident in a few weeks. Tragic, really, but mental health is such a serious issue these days. Leora felt the floor drop out from under her. This was it. The end. Not the dramatic showdown she'd imagined. Not the justice she'd been promised. Just quiet execution in a hotel kitchen while the city's elite sipped champagne upstairs. Raphael's voice cut through her spiraling thoughts. I have a counteroffer. Theodore raised an eyebrow. Do you now? You let her go. Right now. I'll sign whatever you want, disappear, never speak of this again. But she walks out of here alive and untouched. Raphael, no. Leora started. He didn't look at her, kept his eyes locked on Theodore. That's the deal. Her life for my cooperation. Theodore considered it, gun barrel drifting between Raphael and Leora, like he was deciding which target was more satisfying. Tempting, but I think I'll just kill you both and be done with it. Cleaner that way. The kitchen door burst open. Vincent stumbled in, blood running down his face, hands zip-tied behind his back. Two of Ashford's men dragged him forward, threw him down next to Marcus. Found this one trying to upload files from a car in the parking garage, one of them reported. Got them all deleted before they went anywhere. Theodore laughed. Your lawyer was your backup plan? Raphael, I'm disappointed. I expected better. But Leora saw something the others didn't. Vincent's eyes, the slightest shake of his head, the way his fingers moved behind his back in a pattern that looked random, but wasn't. He'd uploaded the files. This was theater. She didn't know how she knew, but she was certain. Vincent had gotten the evidence out before they'd caught him. Everything else was misdirection, buying time. The question was, time for what? Theodore checked his watch. My father's speech starts in 3 minutes. I need to be upstairs for that. So let's wrap this up. He raised his gun, pointed it at Raphael's head. Any last words? Yeah. Raphael's voice was calm, almost conversational. Did you really think I came here without insurance? Theodore's finger tensed on the trigger. What insurance? The kind that goes public if I don't check in every 30 minutes. Videos, audio, documents, everything we had on your family, sent to media outlets, law enforcement, federal investigators, all automated, all irreversible. Bluffing. Try me. The two men stared at each other, and Leora could feel the calculation happening. Theodore trying to decide if Raphael was lying, if the risk was worth it. Raphael betting everything on a bluff that might not even exist. Then Theodore's phone rang. He answered it, still keeping the gun trained on Raphael. Listened. His expression went from confident to confused to furious in the space of 10 seconds. What do you mean it's already airing? I thought we killed it. Pause. All of them? Simultaneously? Longer pause. His face went pale. Fuck. He lowered the phone, and when he looked at Raphael again, the confidence was gone, replaced by something raw and desperate. What did you do? Exactly what I said I would. Destroyed your family. Raphael's smile was cold, vicious. Every network, every news outlet, every platform we could reach. They're running the story right now. Your father's speech is being interrupted by breaking news about his son, the rapist. By morning, Theodore Ashford Jr. will be the most hated man in New Bordeaux. Theodore's hand shook. The gun wavered. You're lying. You couldn't have. The evidence was on those drives. We deleted. Those drives were decoys. The real files uploaded hours ago, set to release on a timer we couldn't stop even if we wanted to. Raphael's voice was steady, factual. You lost, Theodore. The moment you thought you'd won, you lost. For a second that stretched into eternity, Theodore stood there with the gun pointed at Raphael's head, finger on the trigger, weighing whether revenge was worth it. Then the kitchen doors burst open and New Bordeaux PD flooded in, guns drawn, shouting orders that turned the space into chaos. Drop the weapon! Hands where we can see them! Nobody move! Theodore's men didn't even try to fight. Dropped their guns, raised their hands, probably already calculating bail and lawyers. Theodore himself stood frozen, still pointing his gun at Raphael, still trying to process how this had all gone so wrong. A plainclothes detective stepped forward, woman in her 50s, shield on her belt. Theodore Ashford Jr., you're under arrest for assault, kidnapping, witness tampering, and about 15 other charges we're still compiling. This is a mistake, Theodore said, but his voice cracked. Your father just resigned from his Senate campaign, live on television, about 3 minutes ago. The detective gestured to her officers. Take him. They moved in, cuffed Theodore, started reading his rights. He screamed the whole way, threats, promises, appeals to authority that no longer existed. The detective turned to Raphael. You must be Moretti. Must be. You've caused me a hell of a lot of paperwork tonight. Sorry about that. She didn't smile. We'll need statements from all of you, full cooperation. And don't think this makes you a hero. You're still a person of interest in about a dozen ongoing investigations. Wouldn't dream of it. The detective's eyes shifted to Leora. You're the victim, the woman from the alley. Leora nodded, not trusting her voice. Paramedics are outside. They'll check you over, make sure you're okay. Then we'll need your statement. Full account, everything that happened. The detective's voice softened. I know it's hard, but we're going to make sure this sticks. Theodore Ashford, his friends, anyone who helped cover this up, they're all going down. EMTs appeared, started treating Marcus and Vincent. Police moved through the kitchen, securing the scene, taking photos. The machinery of justice grinding forward. Leora found herself sitting on a prep station, legs dangling, watching it all unfold like a movie she wasn't really part of. Raphael appeared next to her, jacket torn, face bruised from where one of Theodore's men had hit him during the scuffle. You okay? He asked. I don't know. Are you? Getting there. He looked at his hands, scraped knuckles, dried blood. I meant what I said earlier. The offer I made Theodore. Your life for mine, I would have done it. I know. That scares you. Yeah. She met his eyes. But not as much as it should. They sat there in the wreckage of the kitchen, two people who'd started this as strangers bound by violence and were ending it as something else entirely. Not friends, not quite, but something forged in the kind of fire that either destroyed you or made you unbreakable. The detective returned, flanked by two uniforms. Mr. Moretti, we're going to need you to come with us. Voluntarily, for now. But that could change depending on what we find in your financial records. About those records, Raphael said, you'll want to look into Senator Ashford's shell companies. Might find some interesting connections. We already are. The detective's expression was unreadable. Turns out your lawyer, Vincent, is it? He's been very cooperative, very detailed in his documentation of the senator's business interests. Raphael glanced at Vincent, who was getting his head wound treated. Vincent gave a slight nod. Insurance within insurance. Backup plans for the backup plans. Guess I trained him well, Raphael said. Guess you did. They led Raphael away. Not in cuffs, not yet, but surrounded by enough officers that he couldn't have run even if he'd wanted to. Leora watched him go, this man who'd pulled her out of the rain and into a war. Who'd risked everything because someone had to, who'd just lost his entire empire, but somehow still looked like he'd won. The detective approached Leora, gentler now. You've been through hell, I get that, but I need you to stay focused for a few more hours. Can you do that? Yes. Good, because this is just the beginning. Theodore's arrest is going to shake this whole city. Everyone who helped him, everyone who looked the other way, they're all going to lawyer up, point fingers, try to cut deals. Your testimony is the foundation that keeps this from falling apart. You understand? Leora nodded. Then let's go. We've got a lot of work ahead of us. They walked out of the kitchen, through corridors now swarming with police and federal agents, past the press gallery where cameras were still rolling and reporters were frantically updating their stories. Upstairs, she could hear shouting, Senator Ashford's fundraiser dissolving into chaos as the news spread. Outside, the night air hit her like a slap, cold, clear, real. Leora stood on the sidewalk, paramedics checking her vitals, police taking preliminary statements, the whole machinery of consequences grinding into motion. Somewhere in the city, her sister was probably watching the news, trying to understand how her little sister had ended up at the center of the biggest scandal in New Bordeaux history. Somewhere else, Theodore Ashford Jr. was sitting in a holding cell, probably still convinced his father's money and power would save him. And somewhere in between, Raphael Moretti was answering questions from detectives who'd been trying to nail him for years and were probably thrilled about this opportunity, even as they grudgingly admitted he'd done the right thing. A black SUV pulled up. Dante got out, limping slightly. He'd been shot during the chaos, but it looked superficial. He approached Leora, hands in his pockets. "Boss wanted me to check on you. Make sure you're okay." "I'm alive. That's something." "It's everything." Dante looked back at the hotel, at the police lights painting everything in blue and red. "This is going to get uglier before it gets better. The Ashfords have deep roots. They'll fight this with everything they have." "Let them," he smiled. "Yeah, that's what the boss said too." He handed her a card, plain white, just a phone number. "You need anything? Protection, legal help, someone to talk to? You call this number, day or night. We take care of our people." "I'm not your people." "You survived this. That makes you family." He turned to leave, paused. "For what it's worth. You're tougher than you think. Most people would have broken. You didn't." "I came close." "Close doesn't count." He climbed back into the SUV and drove away, leaving Leora alone with the paramedics and the police and the weight of everything that had just happened. The detective returned, clipboard in hand. "Ready to give your statement?" Leora looked at the hotel, at the chaos spilling out into the street, at the city that had tried to erase her and failed. "Yeah," she said. "I'm ready." They led her to a patrol car, helped her into the back seat. Through the window she watched New Bordeaux slide past, neon and shadows, wealth and poverty, beauty and brutality, all mixed together in a sprawl that didn't care who you were or what you'd survived. But tonight, for the first time since that alley, since those fists, since the rain and the blood, and the absolute certainty that she didn't matter, tonight, the city was going to listen. And Leora Vance was going to make damn sure it heard every word. The interrogation room smelled like industrial cleaner and stale coffee. Leora sat in a metal chair that was bolted to the floor, hands wrapped around a styrofoam cup of water she hadn't touched. The detective, her name was Morrison, sat across the scarred table with a recorder running and patience that felt infinite. "Let's go over the timeline one more time," Morrison said. From the beginning, Leora had told the story 4 times already. Once to the paramedics, once to the uniforms at the scene, twice to Morrison herself. Each telling scraped her raw, but she kept her voice steady. "I finished my set at the Velvet Grave around 11:30, left through the back exit, started walking to the bus stop on 6th Avenue. And that's when you encountered Theodore Ashford Jr. Him and 3 others. They followed me into the alley. Blondie, Theodore, he did most of the talking. The others just participated." Morrison's pen scratched across her notepad. "You mentioned in your previous statement that Theodore indicated this wasn't his first time. Can you elaborate?" "He said his father keeps him out of the papers, like it was routine, like there'd been others before me who just disappeared or stayed quiet." "Did he name anyone specifically?" "No. But he was confident, too confident. This wasn't impulsive for him. It was practiced." Morrison nodded, made another note. Through the one-way mirror, Leora could see movement. Other detectives, maybe federal agents. This wasn't just a local assault case anymore. This was corruption, conspiracy, systematic abuse of power. The kind of case that made careers or destroyed them. "Tell me about Raphael Moretti," Morrison said, shifting gears. "How did he become involved?" Leora chose her words carefully. "He found me in the alley after the attack, got me medical help, kept me safe while I decided what to do." "Safe?" or hidden? Both. And the confessions you obtained from Jason Kerr and Christopher Lane, how exactly did Mr. Moretti acquire those? This was the dangerous part, the line between victim and accomplice, between justice and vigilantism. Leora met Morrison's eyes directly. I don't know the specifics. I know Raphael questioned them. I know they confessed on recording. Beyond that, I wasn't involved in the operational details. You witnessed at least one of these interrogations. I was present when Jason Kerr was questioned. Raphael didn't torture him if that's what you're asking. He just made it very clear that lying wasn't an option. That's called coercion. That's called accountability. Leora's voice hardened. Those men beat me unconscious and left me to die. The police weren't going to do anything about it. Raphael did. Morrison leaned back, studied her. You understand that Mr. Moretti is a known criminal, that his organization has been linked to racketeering, money laundering, and violence. You're defending someone who's broken more laws than Theodore Ashford ever did. I'm not defending anyone. I'm stating facts. Leora set down the cup, hands steady now. Raphael Moretti may be a criminal, but he's the only person who treated what happened to me like it mattered. That's not defense. That's gratitude. The door opened. A man in a federal jacket leaned in, whispered something to Morrison. She nodded, stood. We're going to take a break. Sit tight. They left Leora alone in the room, with the recorder still running and her thoughts spiraling. Through the mirror, she could see shadows moving, hear muffled voices arguing. Something was happening, something that made detectives move faster and talk louder. 20 minutes later, Morrison returned. Her expression had changed, harder, more urgent. We have a problem. What kind of problem? Senator Ashford isn't going down quietly. He's claiming the evidence was fabricated, that you and Raphael conspired to frame his son for political purposes. He's got lawyers already filing motions to suppress the confessions, claiming they were obtained through illegal means. Leora's stomach dropped. But the recordings are being challenged as coerced testimony inadmissible in court. Without them, we're back to your word against Theodore's, and the Ashford legal team is very good at discrediting witnesses. So what are you saying? That this was all for nothing? I'm saying we need more. Something the Ashfords can't explain away or suppress. Morrison pulled out her phone, showed Leora a news alert. Senator Ashford just held a press conference. Claims his son was set up by criminal elements trying to destroy his mayoral campaign. Says you're a willing participant in Raphael Moretti's vendetta. The narrative's already shifting. Leora read the headline. Senator claims son framed in elaborate scheme. Underneath, a photo of Senator Ashford looking dignified and wounded, flanked by lawyers in $1,000 suits. They're making me the villain. They're trying to. But here's the thing. 3 other women just came forward. Women who claim Theodore assaulted them in the past. Women who were paid off or threatened into silence. Morrison's eyes were sharp, calculating. If we can get them on record, if we can establish a pattern, the Ashfords won't be able to dismiss this as conspiracy. It becomes systematic abuse. Will they testify? 2 of them are willing. The third is scared, understandably. She needs to see that someone else is willing to stand up publicly, someone who survived and isn't backing down. Morrison leaned forward. I need you to do a press conference, on camera. Tell your story to the whole city. Show them you're not some criminal conspirator. Show them you're a survivor who refused to stay silent. Every instinct in Leora's body screamed no. Going public meant painting a target on herself that would never fade. Meant her face, her name, her trauma becoming commodity for news cycles and social media. Meant never being anonymous again. When? She heard herself ask. Tomorrow morning, 9 a.m., City Hall steps, maximum visibility. And if the Ashfords retaliate? We'll have protection. Plainclothes officers, federal marshals. You'll be as safe as we can make you. As safe as we can make you. Not safe. Just safer than the alternative. Leora thought about the 3 women who'd suffered before her. Who'd taken the money or swallowed the threats and spent years living with what Theodore had done to them. Thought about the ones who might come after if this didn't stop now. Okay, she said. I'll do it. Morrison nodded, respect flickering across her face. Good. We'll prep you tonight. Go over what to say, how to handle hostile questions. The media is going to be brutal. They can't be worse than what I've already survived. Don't be so sure. They spent the next 6 hours in preparation. A prosecutor came in with key points to emphasize, traps to avoid. A media consultant taught her how to speak to cameras without looking like a victim or an aggressor, just someone telling the truth. They ran through mock questions, hostile scenarios, every angle the Ashfords' team might use to discredit her. By midnight, Leora's head was pounding and her voice was raw, but she could recite her statement without trembling, could deflect accusations without losing composure, could look into a camera lens and make the people watching believe her. "You're ready," Morrison said finally. "Get some sleep. Tomorrow's going to be intense." Sleep. Right. Like that was possible. Because they put her in a safe house. Actual police protection this time, not Raphael's shadow network. 2 officers outside, reinforced locks, windows that didn't open. She lay on a cot that smelled like bleach and tried to quiet her mind enough to rest. Her phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. Saw the news. "You're brave. Braver than I was." SM. One of the other women, one of Theodore's previous victims, reaching out through the darkness to offer solidarity. Leora typed back, "Tomorrow, we all get to be brave." She set the phone down, closed her eyes, and let exhaustion pull her under. The dreams came anyway. Theodore's smile, fists in the rain, Raphael's voice promising protection he couldn't guarantee, the white room, the wire under her dress, blood on kitchen tiles. She woke at 5 a.m., gave up on more sleep, and started preparing. By 8:30, she was standing backstage at City Hall, surrounded by police and prosecutors, and people whose names she'd already forgotten. Morrison was there, going over final points. The media consultant was adjusting Leora's collar, making sure she looked camera-ready without looking manufactured. "Remember," Morrison said, "you're not arguing with them. You're just telling what happened. Simple, direct, true." Leora nodded. Her hands were shaking again. She pressed them against her thighs, tried to will them steady. Through the curtain, she could hear the crowd gathering, reporters shouting questions at each other, camera shutters clicking, the machinery of public spectacle warming up. 2 minutes, someone said. Morrison gripped Leora's shoulder. "You've got this, and we've got you." Then they were walking out into the morning sun, into the glare of cameras and the weight of every eye in New Bordeaux turning toward her at once. The steps of City Hall rose up behind her like a monument to the systems that had failed her. A podium stood at the center, microphones bristling. Leora approached it on legs that felt mechanical. The crowd noise was deafening, questions being shouted, camera shutters firing like automatic weapons. She gripped the podium edges, felt the wood grain bite into her palms. The questions stopped. Silence fell. Everyone waiting. She opened her mouth to speak. "Liar!" The voice cut through the quiet like a blade. Leora's eyes found the source. A woman in the front row, expensive suit, holding a sign that read Ashford Family Values. Probably paid to be there, scripted and positioned. Security moved toward the woman, but Morrison waved them off. Let it play out. Let everyone see how desperate the Ashfords were. Leora steadied her breathing, looked past the heckler to the cameras beyond. "My name is Leora Vance. 3 weeks ago, I was beaten and sexually assaulted by Theodore Ashford Jr. and 3 of his friends. They left me in an alley to die. I'm here today because someone found me before that happened. I'm here because I refuse to let what they did to me be erased. And I'm here because I'm not the first woman Theodore Ashford has hurt, and I won't be the last unless we stop him now." More shouting from the crowd, some supportive, some hostile. Leora kept her eyes on the cameras. "I know what the Ashford family is saying, that I'm lying for money, that I'm part of some conspiracy, that this is political." Her voice grew stronger, clearer. "But here's the truth, I didn't want any of this. I wanted to sing in a club and pay my rent and live a life that didn't matter to anyone except me. Theodore Ashford took that choice away. He decided my body, my voice, my life were his to destroy. And when I survived, his family decided my credibility was theirs to eliminate." A reporter shouted a question. "Is it true you're working with Raphael Moretti?" "Raphael Moretti saved my life. He got me medical attention, kept me safe, and helped me find the courage to speak up. I don't know all the details of his business, and I don't defend everything he's done. But I know he treated me with more humanity than the systems that were supposed to protect me ever did. The senator claims the evidence was fabricated. The evidence is my broken ribs. The evidence is the medical reports documenting my injuries. The evidence is the testimony of two men who were there and confessed to what they did. Leora's hands gripped the podium tighter. You want to know what's fabricated? The idea that powerful men can hurt women without consequence. The idea that money and political influence make someone untouchable. That's the fabrication. And I'm done pretending it's real. Movement in the crowd. Leora's eyes tracked it. A man pushing through the reporters, moving toward the steps. Security intercepted him, but not before she saw his face. Senator Marcus Ashford. In person. Looking older than his photos, rage barely contained beneath a veneer of dignified outrage. That's close enough, Senator, Morrison said, stepping between him and Leora. I have a right to address my accuser, Ashford said, voice carrying across the plaza. Cameras swung toward him, hungry for confrontation. This isn't a courtroom. You'll have your day there. My son is innocent. This woman is lying. Ashford pointed at Leora, and she saw murder in his eyes. Not metaphorical, actual, literal murder. She's a pawn being used by a criminal organization to destroy my campaign, my family, my legacy. And I won't stand for it. Then sue me, Leora said, surprising herself with how calm she sounded. Take me to court. Put your son on the stand. Let's see who a jury believes when they hear the evidence. There is no evidence, just lies and fabricated recordings. Then explain the other women. Morrison's voice cut through. 3 other women who've come forward with similar stories about your son. Women who were paid off or threatened into silence. Are they all lying too? All part of this conspiracy? Ashford's composure cracked. Just for a second, but the cameras caught it. The flash of panic, of recognition that this wasn't containable anymore. Those women are opportunists jumping on a bandwagon for what? Money they already turned down? Publicity they've spent years avoiding? Morrison stepped closer. Senator, your son has a pattern. We have documentation going back 5 years. Different victims, same MO. At some point, you have to stop blaming everyone else and accept that Theodore is exactly what these women say he is. The plaza erupted, reporters shouting questions, supporters and protesters screaming at each other. The carefully orchestrated press conference dissolving into chaos. Security moved to extract Leora, but she shook them off, stepped away from the podium, walked down the steps toward where Senator Ashford stood surrounded by his lawyers and handlers. Ms. Vance, that's not advised, Morrison started. Leora ignored her, stopped 3 feet from the senator, looked him in the eye. I know you love your son, she said quietly, just loud enough for the nearest cameras to catch. I know you want to protect him, but protecting him means making him face what he did, means getting him help, not covering it up, not destroying the people he hurt to preserve your political career. Ashford stared at her with such concentrated hatred that she felt it like physical pressure. When he spoke, his voice was low, venomous. You have no idea what you've started, the forces you've set in motion. By this time tomorrow, you'll wish you'd stayed silent. Is that a threat, Senator? Morrison was there now, recording device visible. Ashford's mask snapped back into place. Of course not. Just a statement of fact. Ms. Vance has made serious accusations against my family. We will defend ourselves through every legal means available. Looking forward to it, Leora said. Security finally pulled her away, back up the steps, through the building, away from the cameras and the chaos and Senator Ashford's murderous glare. They moved her through corridors and back doors to an unmarked car waiting in the underground garage. Morrison climbed in beside her. That was reckless. I know. Also effective. His threat was recorded. His reaction was captured. The narrative shifts again. The car pulled out of the garage into the city that had just watched Leora Vance refuse to be erased. Her phone was already blowing up, messages from numbers she didn't recognize, social media mentions climbing into the thousands. Turn it off, Morrison advised. Don't read any of it. Not yet. Is it bad? It's mixed. Some people believe you. Some think you're lying. Some just want to watch the world burn. Morrison's phone rang. She answered, listened, her expression growing tighter. When? How many? Shit. Okay. We're on our way. She hung up, leaned forward to the driver. Change of plans. Take us to the federal building. Now. What's wrong? Leora asked. Theodore Ashford just posted bail, $5 million. He's out. Leora's blood went cold. How is that possible? He's a flight risk. His lawyers argued he's not, that he has ties to the community, no prior convictions, presumption of innocence. Morrison's jaw was tight with frustration. The judge agreed. He's got an ankle monitor and travel restrictions, but he's out. So he can come after me. He won't. He'd be violating bail conditions. He's not that stupid. But Leora saw the doubt in Morrison's eyes, saw the calculation of how desperate the Ashfords were, how much they had to lose, how little they cared about rules when their empire was crumbling. The car pulled into the federal building's underground garage. More security, more corridors, more rooms designed to keep people safe from threats they couldn't control. They put her in a conference room with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. Morrison's phone rang again. And again. The investigation was accelerating, expanding. Federal prosecutors were getting involved. More victims were coming forward. The Ashford financial empire was being dissected by forensic accountants looking for the money trails that connected political power to criminal activity. We're building a case that's airtight, Morrison said after her fifth call. But it's going to take time, weeks, maybe months. Can you hold on that long? Leora looked out at New Bordeaux sprawled below, the city that had tried to erase her and failed. Do I have a choice? There's always a choice. We can put you in witness protection. New name, new city, new life. You'd be safe. And invisible. Yes. Leora thought about the 3 women who'd come forward because she'd refused to hide. Thought about the ones who might still be silent, waiting to see if speaking up was worth the cost. I'm not running, she said. Not anymore. Morrison nodded. Then we keep you here, protected, until Theodore's trial. How long? First hearing is in 2 weeks. Full trial could be 6 months out, maybe longer if his lawyers drag it out. 6 months. Half a year of living in safe houses and conference rooms, of looking over her shoulder, of waiting for the Ashfords to find a way past the security. Her phone buzzed, a text from the same unknown number as last night. Just saw you on TV. You're amazing. We're going to testify too. All of us. Together. SM. Leora showed Morrison. The other women, they're ready. Good. Because the more voices we have, the harder we are to silence. Morrison stood, moved to the window. The Ashfords are going to come at this hard. They'll dig into your past, your family, every mistake you've ever made. They'll try to make you look unstable, opportunistic, complicit. You need to be prepared for that. I am. Are you? Because it's going to get ugly. They'll find out about your evictions, your debt, every relationship that ended badly. They'll interview ex-boyfriends, former employers, anyone who might say something negative, and they'll twist it all into a narrative where you're the villain. Let them. Leora's voice was steady. I know who I am. I know what happened. That's all that matters. Morrison studied her for a long moment. You've changed since that first interview at the hotel. You're harder now. Had to be. Good, because hard is what survives. The door opened. A federal marshal leaned in. We've got a situation. Morrison's hand moved to her weapon. What kind of situation? Raphael Moretti just walked into the lobby. Says he needs to speak with Ms. Vance. Won't leave until he does. Leora's heart kicked. Let him up. Absolutely not, Morrison said. He's a potential co-conspirator in an ongoing investigation. He's also the reason I'm alive to testify. I want to see him. Morrison and the marshal exchanged looks, some silent communication that ended with Morrison sighing. 5 minutes, supervised, and if he says anything that sounds like witness tampering, he gets arrested on the spot. They brought Raphael up in an elevator surrounded by marshals, through security checkpoints that would have stopped anyone else. But Raphael Moretti had a way of making systems bend, of finding gaps where none should exist. He walked into the conference room looking like he'd aged 5 years in 2 days, suit rumpled, bruise on his jaw from the hotel, eyes carrying weight that hadn't been there before. Leave us, Leora said to Morrison. Not happening. Then stand outside, please. Morrison hesitated, then nodded. 5 minutes, not a second more. She and the marshals stepped into the hallway, left the door cracked. Enough privacy to talk, not enough to hide. Raphael and Leora stood on opposite sides of the conference table, the city spread out behind them through the windows. You shouldn't be here, she said. I know. The feds are building a case against you. Everything you did, the interrogations, the evidence gathering, it's all potentially illegal. I know that too. Then why risk it? Raphael moved to the window, looked out at New Bordeaux the same way she had. Because I needed to see for myself that you're okay, that what we did mattered. It mattered. Theodore's facing charges. His father's campaign is imploding. The system's actually working for once. Because you made it work. That press conference, he turned to face her. You were fearless. I was terrified. Same thing sometimes. Raphael's hands clenched and unclenched at his sides. I came to tell you something. The Ashfords emptied my accounts, seized my properties, dismantled everything I built. By traditional measures, I'm finished, ruined. I'm sorry. Don't be. Because they also exposed themselves doing it. Vincent's been documenting everything. Every shell company, every illegal transaction, every connection between Senator Ashford and the criminal enterprises he claimed to be fighting. The feds have it all now. And they're building a RICO case that's going to bury the entire family. Leora felt something crack open in her chest. Hope, maybe. Or vindication. So we actually won. You won. I just created the chaos that made it possible. Raphael moved closer, stopped on the other side of the table. But there's something else, something you need to know before it comes out in Discovery. Her stomach tightened. What? The Velvet Grave, the club where you sang. It wasn't ever mine. Not really. His voice was quiet, careful. Senator Ashford owned it through shell companies. Same as half my operations. He let me think I was independent, let me build an empire. But I was always on his leash. And when I went after his son, he pulled the leash. Leora finished the thought, pieces clicking together. That's why he could dismantle you so fast. He already owned you. Yes. Did you know? When you found me in that alley, did you know the Ashfords owned your club? No, I swear to you I didn't know until Theodore showed me those financial records. Raphael's eyes were raw, honest. If I had known, I might not have helped me. I want to say I would have done it anyway, that my conscience would have won out. But I don't know. And that terrifies me more than losing everything else. Silence filled the space between them. Leora processed this new reality, that her rescue had been accidental, that Raphael's war with the Ashfords had been built on ignorance of his own chains. Does it change anything? She asked finally. Knowing that you were never really free? That your empire was just another Ashford asset? Raphael considered the question. It changes everything. It also changes nothing. I'm still the man who pulled you out of that alley, still the man who decided your life mattered more than politics or power or self-preservation. The reasons behind it, ignorance, guilt, rage, maybe they don't matter as much as what actually happened. They matter to me. I know. That's why I'm telling you, before some prosecutor drags it out in court and makes it look worse than it is. He reached across the table, not touching her, just offering proximity. Whatever happens next, the trials, the testimony, the aftermath, you need to know the complete truth. Not Raphael Moretti, the crime lord. Not Raphael Moretti, the hero. Just Raphael. Flawed, ignorant, trying to do one right thing in a life full of wrong ones. Leora looked at his hand, at the scars on his knuckles, at the evidence of a life lived in shadows. She thought about the white room where he'd kept her safe, about the wire he'd given her to wear into danger, about the backup plans and insurance policies and the calculated risks that had somehow brought them both to this moment. She reached out, took his hand. Thank you, she said, for being flawed, for being ignorant, for trying. His fingers closed around hers, warm and solid. What happens now? Now we both testify. We tell the truth, all of it. The good, the bad, the ugly. And we let the system decide if truth is enough. And if it's not? Leora smiled, surprised by how much steel she heard in her own voice. Then we burn it all down and build something better. The door opened. Morrison, exactly 5 minutes later. Time's up. Mr. Moretti, you need to leave. Raphael released Leora's hand, stepped back. Take care of yourself. You too. They led him away. Leora watched through the window as he emerged onto the street below, climbed into a car driven by Dante, disappeared into the city he'd once ruled and now was just another part of. Morrison returned. He tell you anything we need to know? Just the truth. Same thing I'm going to tell when I testify. Good. Morrison's phone rang again. She answered, listened, her expression shifting from professional to alarmed. When? How close? Shit. Lock it down. Nobody in or out. She hung up, moved to the window, scanned the street below. What's wrong? Leora asked, but she already knew. Could feel it in the sudden tension, the way Morrison's hand moved to her weapon. Theodore Ashford cut off his ankle monitor 20 minutes ago, disappeared from his penthouse before anyone realized he's in the wind. Leora's breath caught. Where? We don't know, but his last known trajectory was toward this building. Morrison was already moving, pulling Leora away from the window. We're evacuating you now. They burst into the hallway. Marshals were already mobilizing, weapons drawn, radios crackling with cross-chatter. The building was going into lockdown, steel shutters dropping over windows, security doors sealing. This way, Morrison said, pulling Leora toward the emergency stairs. They made it 3 floors down before the lights went out. Emergency lighting kicked in, bathing everything in red. Morrison's radio erupted with static and shouting. Shots fired, main lobby. Multiple hostiles, east entrance. Officer down, need backup. Morrison shoved Leora into a stairwell alcove, covered her with her own body. Stay down, don't move. Footsteps echoed from below, multiple sets moving fast. Morrison drew her weapon, aimed at the door. It burst open. Not Theodore, not his men. Raphael, flanked by Dante and Marcus, all armed, all looking like they'd just fought their way through hell to get here. You can't be here, Morrison said, gun still raised. Theodore's got a team, 12 men, maybe more. Professional hitters, not thugs. They're coming for her. Raphael's eyes found Leora's. We're getting her out. Like hell you are. This is a federal facility that's actively being breached. Your people are outgunned. Raphael moved closer, and Morrison had to decide whether to shoot him or listen. We have a vehicle in the garage, armored, 3-minute extraction if we move now. Gunfire erupted from somewhere above them, screaming, the sound of doors being kicked in. Morrison's jaw worked. She was calculating odds, weighing protocol against reality. If you get her killed, won't happen. Morrison lowered her weapon. Go. But I'm coming with you. They moved as a unit, Raphael on point, Dante and Marcus flanking, Morrison and Leora in the middle. Down 3 more floors, through a service corridor, into the parking garage where a black armored SUV sat running. Behind them, the sounds of combat grew louder. Theodore's team was systematically clearing floors, moving toward where Leora had been. They reached the vehicle. Raphael yanked open the door, started pushing Leora inside. The garage entrance exploded, not literally, but close. A cargo van crashed through the security barrier, screeched to a stop 30 feet away. Doors slid open. Men poured out. Theodore was in the front, gun raised, smile back in place. Going somewhere, songbird? Raphael put himself between Theodore and Leora, weapon drawn. Dante and Marcus spread out, creating a defensive perimeter. Morrison was on a radio, calling for backup that might not arrive in time. This is over, Theodore, Raphael said. You're already facing charges. You really want to add murder to the list? I'm already dead, careers destroyed, family name ruined. Might as well take you all with me. Theodore's gun swung toward Leora. Especially her, the bitch who thought she could destroy an Ashford and walk away. You destroyed yourself, Leora said, surprised by how steady her voice was, despite the terror flooding her veins. I just refused to pretend it didn't happen. Same thing. Theodore's finger tightened on the trigger. Raphael fired first. The garage erupted into chaos. Muzzle flashes in the dim light. Bullets sparking off concrete. Someone screaming. Leora hit the ground behind the SUV's engine block, hands over her head, world reduced to sound and fury. Morrison returned fire, dropped one of Theodore's men. Dante took out another. But there were too many of them. Too well armed. Too committed. A hand grabbed Leora's jacket, yanked her toward the vehicle. Raphael, bleeding from his shoulder, pushing her into the back seat. Drive, he shouted to whoever was behind the wheel. The SUV lurched forward. Bullets hammered into the armored panels, spiderwebbing the bulletproof glass, but not breaking through. They crashed through what was left of the garage entrance onto the street, into daylight and traffic and the chaos of New Bordeaux at mid-morning. Behind them, more gunfire. Sirens converging. The federal building locked down and under siege. Leora pulled herself upright, looked at Raphael slumped in the seat next to her, blood seeping through his jacket. "You're hit." "I'm fine." "You're not fine. You're bleeding." "I said I'm fine." He pressed his hand against the wound, grimaced. "Went through. Clean. I've had worse." In the driver's seat, Leo navigated through traffic with the kind of precision that came from experience fleeing crime scenes. Morrison was in the passenger seat, still on her radio, coordinating response. "Where are we going?" Leora asked. "Somewhere safe," Raphael said. "Nowhere safe. Not anymore. Theodore just attacked a federal building. This is war." "Then we end it." Raphael met her eyes, and she saw something final there. Something that had been building since the alley, since the White Room, since the moment he decided her life was worth more than his empire. "We finish this. Tonight. One way or another." The SUV turned down an alley, emerged onto a side street, disappeared into the maze of New Bordeaux, while behind them the city erupted into sirens and smoke and the sound of an empire finally, absolutely, coming apart. The safe house wasn't safe anymore. They all knew it the moment Leo pulled the armored SUV into the underground garage of what used to be one of Raphael's holdings. A warehouse converted into offices, now legally owned by nobody after the Ashford seizures. But it had generators, reinforced doors, and enough weapons stashed in the walls to hold off a small army. Which was exactly what they were expecting. Raphael sat on a metal table while Dante worked on his shoulder, digging out fragments of bullet that hadn't made it all the way through. No anesthetic, just whiskey and gritted teeth. Blood pooled on the concrete floor beneath them. "Clean exit wound my ass," Dante muttered, tweezers probing. "This is shredded. Just stop the bleeding." "I'm a soldier, not a surgeon." "Close enough." Morrison was on her phone with Federal Command, her voice tight with controlled fury. "I don't care about jurisdiction. Theodore Ashford just attacked a federal facility with a private military force. That's domestic terrorism. I want every alphabet agency you've got converging on New Bordeaux in the next hour." Leora stood by the window. Reinforced glass, view of nothing but alley and dumpsters. Her hands wouldn't stop shaking. She pressed them against the cold glass, tried to ground herself in something solid. Marcus appeared at her side, arm in a sling from where he'd been shot at the hotel. He'd refused hospital treatment, stayed with Raphael through everything, loyalty, or maybe just nowhere else to go. "You okay?" he asked. "Stop asking me that." "Can't help it. You look like you're about to crack." "I cracked 3 weeks ago. This is just what's left." He smiled, grim. "Then you're doing better than most." Morrison ended her call, joined them at the window. "Federal response is mobilizing, but it'll be 2 hours minimum before they're in position. Local PD is stretched thin dealing with the aftermath at the federal building. We're on our own until then." "Theodore won't wait 2 hours," Raphael said from across the room, Dante finally tying off the bandage on his shoulder. "He's burned every bridge, attacked federal officers. This ends tonight, one way or another." "So what's the play?" Dante asked, checking his weapon. "We hunker down and wait for cavalry, or we go on offense?" "We end it." Raphael stood, testing his shoulder. Winced, but didn't show weakness beyond that. "Theodore wants Leora dead because she's the witness who started this avalanche. As long as she's alive, the case against him stands. We use that." "Use it how?" Leora turned from the window. "As bait? Again?" "As leverage." Raphael moved to a table covered in blueprints and city maps. "Theodore's in the wind, but he's not invisible. He's got resources, money his father stashed offshore, properties not in the Ashford name, connections to people who owe favors. But he also has vulnerabilities." "Such as?" Morrison asked. "Pride. Rage. The absolute certainty that he's untouchable even when his world's burning down around him." Raphael pointed to a location on the map. "The old Ashford estate. East side, outside city limits. Been in the family for generations, held in a trust Theodore can access. If he's planning his endgame, that's where he'll stage it." "That's a fortress," Marcus said. 20-acre compound, private security, walls that could stop a tank. "Not anymore." Senator Ashford pulled his security detail to protect his campaign offices downtown, left the estate with skeleton crew. Raphael's finger traced the perimeter. 3 guards, maybe 4. Cameras we can disable. Access points we can exploit. Morrison shook her head. This is insane. You're talking about a tactical assault on private property. I'm talking about finishing what Theodore started when he attacked that federal building. Raphael's voice was cold, final. He declared war. We're just choosing the battlefield. And if he's not there, then we wait, because he'll come, can't help himself. Raphael looked at Leora. He needs to win, needs to prove he's still in control. Killing you and his family home on Ashford land, that's poetry to him, symbolic. Leora felt the weight of it settling over her like a shroud. This was the end then. Not in a courtroom or a headline. In blood and darkness on land that had belonged to the Ashfords since before New Bordeaux had a name. I'm in, she said. Leora, Morrison started. I'm in. This ends tonight, on our terms. Raphael nodded. Then we move in 2 hours, after dark. Dante, Marcus, inventory what we've got for weapons and gear. Leo, I need schematics of the estate's security system. Morrison, if you're coming, you're off the books. This goes sideways. Federal can disavow. I'm aware. Morrison checked her weapon, face grim. But I'm not letting her walk into this alone. They spent the next 90 minutes preparing for war. Checking weapons, running through scenarios, identifying choke points, and fallback positions. Leora watched them move with practiced efficiency, these men who'd spent their lives in violence and felt like a fraud among professionals. Raphael found her in a corner, loading a handgun she barely knew how to use. Safety's on backwards, he said gently. She flipped it, chambered around with shaking hands. I don't know what I'm doing. None of us do. We just pretend better. He sat next to her, close enough that their shoulders touched. You don't have to come. We can stash you somewhere secure, end this without putting you in the line of fire. And miss the finale? No chance. Leora, he took everything from me, Raphael. My safety, my voice, my ability to walk down a street without looking over my shoulder. I'm not letting him take the ending too. She met his eyes. I need to see his face when he realizes he lost. Need to be there when it's finally actually over. Raphael was quiet for a moment. When he spoke, his voice carried something she'd never heard from him before. Fear. People die in situations like this. Even when we plan everything perfectly, even with all the advantages, people die. And I can't guarantee it won't be you. I know. That doesn't scare you? Terrifies me. But staying behind scares me more. She set the gun down, turned to face him fully. For 3 weeks, I've been someone things happen to. Someone who needs protecting, saving, hiding. I'm done with that. Tonight, I'm someone who happens to things. He smiled, sad and proud at once. You already are. They loaded into 2 vehicles at sunset, the armored SUV and a van filled with equipment. Raphael drove the SUV with Leora in the passenger seat. Morrison, Dante, and Marcus followed in the van. Leo stayed behind to coordinate, monitor police frequencies, be their eyes if things went dark. The Ashford estate rose up against the twilight like something from another century. Stone walls, iron gates, gardens gone wild from neglect. The kind of old money that thought it could outlast everything. Scandals, laws, consequences. They parked a quarter-mile out, moved the rest of the way on foot through woods that bordered the property. Raphael had been right about the security. Minimal. 2 guards visible, one at the main gate, another patrolling the grounds with a flashlight and obvious boredom. Cameras? Morrison whispered into her radio. Disabled, Leo's voice crackled back. You've got a 30-minute window before someone notices the loop. They breached the wall at the weakest point, where stone had crumbled and been patched poorly. Over and in, moving through shadows with the kind of silence that came from practice. The estate spread before them, main house dark except for a few lit windows upstairs, outbuildings scattered across the property, a fountain in the center courtyard that hadn't run in years. Movement, east wing, Dante reported from his position. 3 heat signatures. Theodore? Raphael asked. Can't confirm, but someone's home. They approached the main house from 3 angles. Raphael and Leora through the front, Morrison and Marcus from the west entrance, Dante holding the perimeter. The door was unlocked. First sign that they were expected. Inside, the house smelled like old wood and older money. Portraits of Ashford's past lined the walls. Generations of men who'd built New Bordeaux into their personal kingdom. The last portrait showed Senator Marcus Ashford in his prime, young and confident, before his son had become his legacy's poison. "Upstairs," Raphael whispered, gesturing to where light spilled from an open door. They climbed the curved staircase, weapons drawn, every nerve screaming that this was a trap. But traps only worked if you couldn't see them coming, and Raphael had been walking into traps his whole life. The lit room was a study. Mahogany desk, leather chairs, bookshelves filled with volumes no one had read in decades. And standing by the window, silhouetted against the last light of day, Theodore Ashford Jr. He turned as they entered, and Leora was struck by how different he looked. Not the confident predator from the alley or the cornered animal from the garage. Something else now, something broken, and put back together wrong. "You came," Theodore said. "Wasn't sure you would." "Where's your army?" Raphael asked, gun-trained center mass. "The 12 hitters from the federal building?" "Gone. Dead or scattered. Turns out mercenaries don't stick around when the money dries up." Theodore smiled, empty and bitter. "It's just me now. One last Ashford in the family home, waiting for the end." "Then this is easy." Raphael's finger moved to the trigger. "Wait." Theodore raised his hands, not surrender, but pause. "Don't you want to know why? Why I did it? Why any of this happened?" "Don't care," Leora said, surprised by how steady her voice was. "You're a predator who thought he was untouchable. That's all the why anyone needs." "Is it, though?" Theodore moved away from the window, closer to them. Raphael tracked him with the gun, but didn't fire. "You think I woke up one day and decided to hurt women for fun? You think that's how monsters are made?" "Don't," Raphael warned. "Don't try to make this sympathetic." "I'm not. I'm just telling you the truth." Theodore's eyes were feverish, desperate to be understood, even as he was destroyed. "My father raised me to believe Ashfords were different, special, that rules existed for other people but not us. Every time I got in trouble, fights at school, drunk driving, that girl in college who claimed every time he fixed it, paid people off, made evidence disappear, told me it was okay because we were Ashfords and Ashfords didn't face consequences." "So this is his fault?" Leora's voice dripped contempt. "You're blaming your father for making you a rapist?" "I'm saying I was raised in a world where my actions didn't matter, where I could take what I wanted because power meant never having to ask permission." Theodore's laugh was hollow. "And then you happened. One woman who refused to disappear, one victim who fought back, and suddenly the whole structure collapsed." "Good," Morrison said from the doorway, weapon drawn. "It deserved to collapse." Theodore looked at her, at Raphael, at Leora. "You think you've won. That justice prevailed. But all you've done is tear down one corrupt system to replace it with another. Raphael's methods, your vendetta, that's not justice. That's just different violence wearing a prettier mask." "Maybe," Raphael said. "But it's violence that protected someone who needed it, that stopped someone who needed stopping. If that's not justice, it's close enough." "Is it?" Theodore's hand moved to his jacket. 3 guns tracked the motion. Raphael's voice was ice. "Don't!" "Or what? You'll shoot me. Please. Do it. I'm already dead. Career gone. Family name destroyed. Facing life in prison for crimes that wouldn't have even been investigated if you'd stayed in your lane." Theodore's hand emerged holding not a weapon, but a phone. "I've got one play left. One way to win this." He tapped the screen. Behind them, the door slammed shut, locks engaged with mechanical precision. "Trap," Dante's voice crackled over the radio. "Buildings being sealed. Some kind of automated security." Static. Then nothing. Raphael moved to the door, tested it. Solid. Reinforced. Not moving. He turned back to Theodore, gun raised. "What did you do?" "Turn this house into your tomb." Theodore set the phone down, smiled that same empty smile. "This study's airtight when sealed. Reinforced walls, no windows that open. In about 6 hours, you'll run out of oxygen. 7 if you conserve it. But you won't last that long." "Why?" Leora asked. "If you're already dead, why take us with you?" "Because fuck you, that's why." All pretense of philosophy dropped away, leaving just raw hatred. "Fuck you for thinking you mattered. Fuck Raphael for thinking he could challenge my family. Fuck everyone who believed a nobody singer over in Ashford. He pulled out a gun, small caliber, probably a holdout piece. I can't win, but I can make sure you don't either. He pointed it at Leora. Raphael fired. The shot caught Theodore in the chest, spun him sideways. He collapsed against the desk, blood spreading across his white shirt, phone clattering to the floor. But he was laughing, actually laughing. Doesn't matter, he gasped. Systems automated. Can't stop it. Morrison was already on her radio. Leo, we're sealed in. Need override codes for the Ashford estate security. Working on it. Firewalls are insane. Give me 20 minutes. We might not have 20 minutes. Morrison looked at Theodore, bleeding out on the antique rug. Where's the manual override? Basement? Security. Panel. Theodore coughed blood. But you won't make it. Doors are all sealed. Raphael moved to the phone Theodore had dropped, started scrolling through the security app. He's right. Whole house is in lockdown, designed to trap intruders, wait for police response. Except police aren't coming, Leora said. Not for hours. Then we make our own exit. Raphael examined the walls, the ceiling. These old estates, they've got weak points. Maintenance access, ventilation shafts. Also sealed, Theodore said, voice weakening. Thought of everything. Bullshit. No system's perfect. Raphael was moving now, checking panels, tapping walls, looking for anything that didn't fit. Morrison joined him, years of federal training applied to finding exits where none should exist. Leora stayed near Theodore, watching him bleed. She should have felt something, triumph, vindication, the satisfaction of watching him pay, but all she felt was tired. Does it hurt? She asked quietly. Theodore's eyes found hers. Everything hurts. Good. You think you're better than me, but you're not. Just luckier. You had Raphael. I had my father. Different. Monsters. Same violence. No. Leora knelt next to him, close enough to see the light fading from his eyes. Raphael never took a choice from me. Never made me less than human. He gave me options and respected whatever I chose. Your father gave you permission to destroy people. They're not the same. Theodore tried to laugh, choked on blood instead. Maybe. Doesn't matter now. It matters. It's the only thing that matters. Leora stood, left him dying on his family's floor, and joined Raphael at the wall where he'd found something, a ventilation panel, bolted but not sealed. This leads to the main system, he said, prying at the bolts with a knife. If we can access the ductwork, might find a way to the basement. Might? Better than suffocating. The panel came free, behind it darkness and the smell of dust. It'll be tight, possibly dangerous, definitely not designed for people. Morrison appeared with a flashlight from her gear. I'll go. I'm smallest. No. Leora took the flashlight. I'm smaller, and I've spent 3 weeks being protected. Let me be useful. Leora, Raphael started. I'm going. Unless you want to waste time arguing. He stared at her for 3 seconds, then nodded. Straight down, 2 floors. You'll hit the main junction. From there, follow the largest duct south. That should drop you near the basement access. And if it doesn't? Improvise. He helped her up to the opening, their faces close in the dim light. You can do this. I know. She pulled herself into the duct, flashlight in her teeth, and started crawling. Behind her, the opening sealed back up, Raphael replacing the panel to preserve air in the study. Ahead, nothing but metal and darkness and the sound of her own breathing echoing back. The duct was exactly as tight as she'd feared, shoulders scraping metal, knees banging on rivets, air growing thinner with each foot of progress. She focused on breathing, in through nose, out through mouth, steady rhythm that kept panic at bay. The duct sloped down. She half crawled, half slid, trying to control descent without making noise that might alert whatever guards were still functioning. At the bottom, junction point. 3 directions, no markings. South. Raphael had said south. She checked her mental compass, chose the widest duct, kept moving. Time became elastic. Could have been 5 minutes or 50. Her world contracted to the circle of light from her flashlight, the metal walls pressing close, the growing certainty that she was lost in the guts of a house built to keep secrets. Then, voices. Muffled, distant. She followed the sound to a grate, peered through. Basement. Concrete floor, industrial lighting, and 3 men in tactical gear securing the perimeter. Not estate guards. Private contractors. The kind Theodore would have hired with offshore money his father couldn't track. They hadn't spotted her yet. Were focused on the main door, expecting threat from above, not from the ventilation system. Leora backed up slowly, found a different duct, kept searching. The security panel had to be somewhere down here. Theodore had said basement, and he'd had no reason to lie. He'd wanted them trapped, helpless, dying slow. Another grate. This one looking into a smaller room, older, original to the estate's construction. Stone walls, ancient electrical panel, and next to it, a modern security console blinking with status lights. No guards, just equipment. She tested the grate. Screwed in, but rust had made the metal brittle. She braced against the duct walls, kicked hard. Once. Twice. Third time the grate gave way, clattered to the floor. Leora dropped through, landing hard on concrete that punished her still-healing ribs. She gasped, forced herself upright, moved to the security console. Lines of code scrolling across the screen. Status indicators showing every door, window, and access point sealed. Timer counting down, 5 hours, 23 minutes until automated police notification. She touched the screen, prompted for password. Of course, because nothing could be simple. She tried the obvious. Ashford, denied. Theodore, dented. Marcus, denied. Think. What would Theodore use? What mattered enough to him that he'd make it his security key? Legacy, power, control. She typed, untouchable. The console blinked. Access granted. The security interface opened up. Building schematics, door controls, automation protocols. She found the lockdown command, her finger hovering over the override button. Footsteps in the hallway. The contractors had heard the grate fall. She hit override. Throughout the house, locks disengaged with synchronized clicks. Doors opened. Ventilation systems resumed. The trap Theodore had built collapsed in an instant. The basement door burst open. 3 contractors, weapons raised, finding Leora standing at the console with no weapon and no way out. Hands up, now. She raised them, backed against the wall. One of the men moved to the console, saw what she'd done, cursed. She killed the lockdown. Buildings open. Then seal it again. Gunshots from above, shouting. The sound of Raphael and Morrison and the others breaking free from the study, engaging the contractor's backup team. The 3 men in the basement exchanged looks. Math happening fast. Stay and fight, or cut losses and run while they still could. They ran. Leora slumped against the wall, legs giving out, adrenaline crash hitting like a physical blow. She'd done it, actually done it. Not just survived, but acted. Changed the outcome instead of being swept along by it. Footsteps on the stairs. Raphael appeared, weapon drawn, scanning for threats. Found Leora instead, sitting on the floor next to the security console, shaking and laughing and maybe crying a little. "You did it," he said, helping her up. "Yeah, I did." She held on to him longer than necessary, letting the warmth of another human being remind her she was still alive. Morrison appeared with Dante and Marcus. Buildings clear, contractors fled. Local PD is 5 minutes out. "And Theodore?" Leora asked. Raphael's expression went dark. Dead. Bled out in the study. She waited for the satisfaction, the sense of justice served. Found only exhaustion. They were sitting on the estate's front steps when the first patrol cars arrived, followed by federal vehicles, news vans, and the whole circus of consequences catching up. Morrison handled the initial response, explaining what had happened in terms that would satisfy reports without mentioning the dozen laws they'd broken getting here. A paramedic checked Leora over, bruised ribs, minor cuts from the ductwork, dehydration and shock, but nothing that wouldn't heal. They wanted to take her to the hospital. She refused. "I'm done with white rooms and people telling me I need protection." The paramedic looked at Morrison, who shrugged. Her call. By midnight, the estate was swarming with investigators documenting everything. Theodore's body, the security system he'd weaponized, evidence of the contractors he'd hired for his endgame. Senator Ashford arrived in a car that cost more than most houses, pushed through police lines on name recognition alone. He found Raphael first, standing apart from the chaos, shoulder freshly bandaged. "You killed my son," the senator said. Voice empty. "Destroyed. Your son killed himself the moment he attacked that federal building. I just expedited the inevitable." Ashford looked at him with eyes that had aged a decade in a week. "We could have resolved this quietly. Therapy for Theodore, compensation for the girl, everyone moves on." "That's not resolution. That's erasure." Raphael's voice was hard. "Your son hurt people, multiple people, and you spent years making sure he never faced consequences. This isn't tragedy, Senator. This is accountability. You've destroyed my family. Your family destroyed itself. I just made sure everyone could see it." Ashford turned away, found Leora sitting on the steps, watching emergency lights paint the night in red and blue. He approached slowly, like she might bolt. "I don't expect forgiveness," he said, "or understanding, but I need you to know, I loved my son. Whatever he became, however he failed, I loved him." Leora looked up at this man who'd built an empire on corruption and lost it protecting a monster. "Then you should have loved him enough to stop him, before it came to this." "I thought I was protecting him." "You were protecting yourself, your legacy, your political future. Theodore was just another asset to manage." She stood, faced him directly. "You want absolution? You're not getting it from me. Go find it somewhere else." She walked away, left Senator Marcus Ashford standing in the wreckage of his family's name, and didn't look back. The trial took 4 months to assemble. Federal prosecutors built a case not just against Theodore, who was beyond earthly judgment, but against the network that had enabled him. Senator Ashford was indicted on 17 counts, including obstruction of justice, witness tampering, and conspiracy. His political career ended not with a defeat, but with a perp walk. Christopher Lane and Jason Kerr both took plea deals, 15 and 12 years respectively, in exchange for testimony about the culture of impunity the Ashfords had fostered. Michael Torres was extradited from Costa Rica, fought the charges, and got 20 years when the jury heard from all 5 victims who'd finally found the courage to speak. Raphael's case was more complicated. The evidence-gathering methods were questionable, but the federal prosecutors needed his testimony to connect the Ashford corruption network. They offered immunity in exchange for cooperation. He took it, on one condition, that Leora's name be kept out of the proceedings except where absolutely necessary. She testified once. 3 hours on the stand, defense lawyers trying to break her credibility, failing. The jury deliberated for 40 minutes before finding Senator Ashford guilty on all counts. Leora watched from the gallery as they led him away. Felt something close in her chest. Not quite closure, but near enough. 6 months after that night at the estate, Leora stood on a stage that wasn't the Velvet Grave. Wasn't a small club with empty tables and dreams that had died years before. This was the Paramount Theater, one of New Bordeaux's historic venues, and tonight it was sold out. The lights dimmed, the crowd quieted, and Leora Vance stepped into the spotlight with a voice that had been broken and rebuilt into something stronger. She sang the song she'd written in the White Room during those weeks of healing, about survival and fury and the cost of fighting back, about finding power in the ruins of what violence had taken. The audience listened, really listened. Some cried, some stood. All of them heard her. When she finished, the applause was deafening, but she barely heard it, was already scanning the crowd for the faces that mattered. Emily was there, 5th row center, tears streaming. Leora's niece and nephew beside her, too young to understand everything but old enough to know their aunt had done something brave. Morrison was in the back, off duty but still carrying the same watchful presence. She nodded once. Job well done. And Raphael, he was in the shadows near the stage door where he'd always been most comfortable. Their eyes met across the distance. He didn't smile. Didn't need to. Just acknowledged her with the smallest tilt of his head, then disappeared into the night. Some connections didn't need maintaining. Some people came into your life to change it, then stepped back to let you live the change they'd made possible. Leora returned to center stage for an encore. Sang something softer, older, a jazz standard about surviving hard times and coming out the other side with scars that taught you how to be human. Backstage afterward, she found a note taped to her dressing room mirror. Raphael's handwriting, unmistakable. You were right. The voice survived. Use it well. R. She tucked the note into her bag, changed out of her stage clothes, and walked out into New Bordeaux night air that smelled like rain and possibility. Her phone buzzed. Emily calling. You were amazing, her sister said, voice thick with emotion. I'm so proud of you. Thanks for coming. Wouldn't have missed it for anything. Pause. You doing okay? Really okay. Lyora considered the question honestly. Thought about the nightmares that still came sometimes. About the way she still checked exits wherever she went. About the fact that healing wasn't linear and trauma didn't disappear just because justice got served. I'm getting there, she said. One day at a time. That's all anyone can ask. They talked for a few more minutes, made plans for lunch next week, then said goodbye. Lyora walked through the city that had tried to erase her, past the alley where it all started, toward a future that was finally, actually hers to build. She didn't know what that future looked like yet. Didn't need to. For now, it was enough to know that when she opened her mouth, sound came out. When she chose a direction, she could walk it. When someone tried to take something from her, she could fight back. The rain started as she reached the bus stop, soft at first, then harder. But this time when it touched her skin, it didn't feel like drowning, just felt like rain. Lyora tilted her face up to the sky, let the water wash over her, and smiled. Not because everything was fixed, not because the pain had disappeared or the scars had faded, but because she'd survived. And survival, it turned out, was its own kind of victory. The bus pulled up, doors hissing open. Lyora climbed on, found a seat by the window, and watched New Bordeaux slide past in streaks of neon and shadow. Somewhere in this city, Raphael was rebuilding what the Ashfords had taken, doing it differently now, maybe, with the hard-won knowledge that power without accountability was just tyranny wearing a different mask. Somewhere else, Morrison was still fighting for justice through official channels, still believing that systems could work if good people refused to let them break. And somewhere, in a prison cell or a courtroom or a grave, the Ashfords were learning that legacy wasn't something you inherited. It was something you earned. And they'd earned ashes. The bus stopped at her corner. Lyora got off, walked the last block to the apartment she could actually afford now, climbed stairs that didn't creak quite as badly, unlocked a door that didn't stick. Inside, the space was small but hers. Truly hers. No one could take it away because she'd signed the lease herself, paid the deposit with money she'd earned from gigs that kept getting bigger. She set her bag down, made tea, stood by the window watching the city settle into its nighttime rhythms. Her phone buzzed again. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer, then did. Ms. Vance? This is Lauren Chen from Metropolitan Records. I was at your show tonight. I'd like to discuss a recording contract if you're interested. Lyora listened to the offer, the terms, the possibilities. A year ago, hell, 6 months ago, this would have been everything she'd dreamed of. Validation, success, proof that she mattered. Can I think about it? She asked. Of course. Take your time. Here's my number. Lyora saved the contact, ended the call, and went back to her tea. Because the thing about surviving was that you learned to be careful with dreams, learned that success wasn't always what you thought it would be, learned that the life you built after trauma needed foundations stronger than ambition. Maybe she'd call Lauren Chen back tomorrow. Maybe she wouldn't. Either way, she had the choice. And choice, Lyora had learned, was the most powerful thing anyone could have. She finished her tea, brushed her teeth, climbed into bed that was comfortable and safe and entirely hers. The nightmares might come tonight. They might not. She'd learned to handle both. Before sleep took her, she thought about the woman she'd been 3 weeks ago, broke, invisible, singing for empty rooms and believing that was all she'd ever be. That woman was gone. Not erased. Lyora carried her still, honored her, remembered what she'd endured. But she wasn't that woman anymore. She was someone who'd walked through fire and decided what shape she'd take on the other side. Someone who'd learned that justice was messy and imperfect and sometimes looked like violence before it looked like peace. Someone who'd discovered that the voice they'd tried to steal was still there, still strong, still capable of making the world listen. Lyora Vance closed her eyes, felt the rhythm of her own breathing, and let herself rest. Tomorrow there would be decisions to make, calls to return, a future to build from the ashes of everything that had burned. But tonight she was just a woman in a warm bed, in a city that finally knew her name, alive when so many forces had tried to make her disappear. And that, she thought as sleep pulled her under, was enough. More than enough. It was everything.